Warning. The information shared in these conversations and videos are intended for general knowledge and entertainment purposes only. It should not be considered as legal advice or professional guidance. Additionally, any documentation or references to specific content are solely for the purpose of discussion and understanding. It does not imply endorsement, promotion, or support of said content. The views expressed in these videos and/or conversation are those of the individuals involved and do not represent any official stance or opinion. The content you are about to experience may contain strong language, including explicit words and phrases. This language is used for artistic expression and may be integral to the storyline or character development. It is important to note that the use of such language does not endorse or promote offensive behavior. Viewer discretion is advised, and please enjoy the show responsibly. Disclaimer. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research. The Canadian Copyright Act, Section 29, allows an individual to use copyright-protected materials when creating a new work such as a mashup and to post the new work online on a site like YouTube. Fair dealing provision for specific purposes like research, private study, education, parody, satire, criticism, review, and news reporting.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you all for being here. Make sure you hit the like on your way in. We are having a special debate tonight. It was, kind of been working on the setup, and we got it going for you guys. So I want you all to make sure you share this out, hit that like, because we got something good going for you guys tonight. It's John Moseman versus Andrew from the Crucible, Andrew Wilson. You guys all know who Andrew Wilson is. We are all going to be watching them debate Christian populism versus Christian anarchy. I know when I first heard Christian anarchy, I didn't know what it was, but John has a way of explaining it that hopefully you all understand it the way I did. Anyways, let's get this going. Bring the... Oh, shit. What did I do? Okay, sorry. Let's bring up the debaters of the night. Welcome, welcome. Make sure we hear you both.
Yeah.
Check, check.
Check, check.
Awesome. Perfect. So we have already decided that we're going to start with 6-minute intros. John is going to be starting off first with his intro. And then we will get this started. As soon as you want to start talking, I got the timer here for you, John.
Okay.
As soon as you start talking, we will get this started. I want to say before we get this started, thank you both. I'm gonna be here to moderate if it gets too out of hand. But other than that, after the both 6-minute intros, we're gonna let it go for an hour open discussion. At the end, we'll read super chat questions or comments, and then we'll open it up for anyone that wants to call in and give a question or a pushback.
Absolutely. Cool. I just want to real quick thank you, SpeakeaZy, for putting this together, and I want to thank Andrew for coming off Mount Olympus and deeming to entertain us mere mortals. And I appreciate the opportunity, my friend. And as a brother in Christ, I thank you for all the work you do. And with that, let the blood go. So let me start off by a quote by a Nikolai Berdev, who says, "The overwhelming majority of people, including Christians, are materialists. They do not believe in the power of the Spirit. They believe only in the material. It is on this principle that I look at Christian anarchism. Like a lot of people, I thought that Christian anarchism was an oxymoron. I thought they were two contradictive terminologies. But as I started to kind of read some of the more popular purveyors of this system of thought, I realized something, that there's an acknowledgement here that this starts not just with a couple of guys from a couple hundred years ago. This starts even back with the words of Jesus himself, when he is talking to the people of the times, and he's talking especially to the Pharisees and the Sadducees of the times, who are trying to trap him in his words. They were trying to go after him. Christian anarchism is not about being anti-order, anti-authoritarian. While there may be some that are in anarchy that may promote such things, they do not represent what anarchism is at its core, which is about volunteerism, and it's also about cooperation. It's the idea that if we want to make any kinds of changes, we have to start from the bottom up. We have to start with ourselves. Long before someone like Andrew Peterson said, clean your room, we have people who are explaining and acknowledging things like this concept of Tolstoy, who says that everyone thinks about changing the world, but they never think about changing themselves. So first and foremost, we can look at the scriptures and we can see where God is instructing us to seek out this kind of renewal of our mind, to trust in his ways, to trust in his ultimate authority. I believe in the authority of Jesus Christ. He is my king. I believe the authority of God in his word, and I believe that that authority is best preserved by acknowledging that he warns us about mixing little o orthodox truth with things that would be temptations of man in the world. The interesting thing is you would think that maybe Christian anarchism is something that comes from Americans or from some weird off corner of the world. The reality is some of the most prominent Christian anarchists come from the Catholic Church, come from the Eastern Orthodox Church, come from these places where they saw the church and they saw things where the church was lost its focus, where it had started to try to artificially go about trying to change the culture by making people do things or trying to use the force of law or try to use the shame. I would agree. Andrew has said many oftentimes that we should never think about things as a if or can or anything. It's an ought debate, and I agree with him that also that force does matter, but force also does have negative ramifications of that. And as a result, we as Christians have to be careful about how much force we advocate, because our master, our king, Jesus Christ himself says, blessed are the peacemakers. I would argue that majority of where Christian anarchism starts is in actually the Beatitudes, where Jesus tells us to be meek, where he tells us to seek after righteousness and to go after him and seek after his ways first before we go about trying to do anything else. It is an easy temptation for us to see all of the degens, and I have no problem acknowledging what Andrew has said, what a lot of people have said, that we have degens. Our society is degens. People who advocate for things, and I don't like the libertarian viewpoint, by the way, that says that, well, you know what, if it does no harm to me, then there is no harm. Obviously, there is harm. Anybody that doesn't believe in these types of harms are lying to themselves. The question is, can we actually truly make effective change, and can we actually win these souls to Christ if we're doing it merely on the auspice of shaming them, of using the law against them? Is this something that is going to cause this? I would say you could look at examples like in Europe, especially during the Spanish Inquisition, where the Roman Catholic Church was trying to convert Jews to Christianity, and a lot of them, it backfired on them. I think it's the first way we do is we go in our vocations. We do it in our families. We do it in our churches. We do it in our local communities. I very much like the idea of subsidiarism in this way, because I believe we start small and we build up. And I do think that it's easy to think that if we could just establish this perfect utopia of laws and nation states and culture, that we would somehow create Christianity and create and stop degeneracy. The reality is, though, that sin is existing, and the answer to it is not by using the threat of law or by trying to shame them, but to show them the love of Christ, to appeal to them by the word of God and by our vocations and all the things that God has advocated for us. I would say that overall Christian anarchism is the idea that we come together in meekness. We come together not with the threat of force of government, not with the threat of force of violence, not with the threat of anything, but to actually appeal to people in love to do the right thing. That's not always easy. It's not going to be pragmatic. I myself would not argue that anarchism in a purely pure sense should be in its own self a effective mechanism for ideology or government. I think it is merely a great way to ask questions to ensure that we have not just a good state, but that we are also remembering to do all things in the proper way in which Christ has constructed us to do and instructed us to do.
All right. With a second to spare. All right. So we'll turn it over to Andrew now. Thank you, John. And whenever you start, Andrew, I'll start up the timer here.
Yeah, so very quickly, John, I'm a little bit confused by the opening, but I'm sure we'll get into it. Now, you seem like the type of guy who likes to have a little bit of fun. I saw your Where's the Beef on your channel. You tagged me, and I thought it was pretty funny. So I was going to have a little fun with my opening statement against Christian anarchy, if you don't mind, if that would be okay. All right. So this is what I call the Ventura argument, the Jesse Ventura argument against Christian anarchism, if you don't mind. The year was 1987 when I was recruited by a CIA operative codenamed George to go down to Guatemala and rescue a group of political prisoners from the Guatemalan Republican Army. An easy mission, so we thought, as we butchered an encampment of enemy soldiers. Now, I say we, but it was mainly just me and my futuristic-looking 1980s jetpack minigun, which fired 87,000 rounds per minute. It was after this epic battle in this jungle that we were attacked by a vagina-mouthed alien monster, later identified as a Yautja from the planet Yautja Prime, where they engage in endless battle with the xenomorph threat. But that's neither here nor there. Where was I? Oh, yeah. So this invisible space alien blasted a bowling ball-sized hole in the chest of yours truly with a shoulder laser beam cannon. And it's at that moment I knew I had to become the governor of Minnesota. But that's neither here nor there. Our fearless Commander Dutch, the head of our Special Operations Command mercenary group, beat this invisible bastard to death with his bare hands, or at least that's the official story. The truth is, even with a hole in my chest, which would dwarf the size of Clinton's vagina, I was still able to take out this clawed death machine with 88,000 rounds of pure American democracy. Dutch never spoke of it, but later he became the governor of California. I think it's safe to say we know a thing or five about illegal aliens. Now back to the topic at hand, which is Christian anarchism. Without a government, we can't put up the space wall and keep these bastards who hunt us for sport out of this fine nation. I told this to Trump and let him know as the first person through the Egyptian Stargate portal who nuked Ra himself that we needed a damn space force to keep these Yautja bastards at bay. Yet here I now have an opponent fixated on an anti-government platform when invisible laser beam wielding psychopathic aliens are attacking our citizens with wild abandon. I've had enough of these so-called anarchists who never spent any time at all reading the Ripley report on what Hillary Clinton would later refer to as the super predators, which is a mix of xenomorphic alien hybrid and Yautja DNA together, creating a massive killing death machine. But that's neither here nor there. The problem is with the elites of the nation doing everything in their power to harvest xenomorph DNA, creating effective brain drain galaxy-wide for the xeno population and these so-called predators who keep coming and harassing our black people who are strapped to the hilt so they can just sell enough drugs to feed their own families. The entire government, except the parts I work in, is totally corrupt and needs to be removed, but that's neither here nor there. Thank you.
All right. That's got to be the best. Shit. All right. With over almost half the time to spare. All right. Now we will open up the discussion for an hour here.
Oh.
And yeah, whoever wants to start, you're more than welcome. And
well, what can be said after
feel
that?
Like,
man?
I feel like it's just an instant W. I mean, but yeah, it's just an instant W. Okay, all right. So back to the debate.
Yeah.
I still don't understand what the fuck Christian anarchism is, and
Okay.
maybe you can help me out here.
Right.
So what is it?
So most importantly, if you look at anarchism in the definition, talking about voluntarism and cooperation, it's the idea. First of all, Christian anarchists don't oppose government. They oppose that the government almost always has to use force, because anything in this world that requires you to be able to maintain things, as you've said many times, like rights or property or anything like that, requires force. So the question of the anarchist is, well, is that something that we should be concerned with? Can we do cooperation? Well, here's the thing: we know
Hang on, back up.
Yeah.
Right now, I just want kind of a simple definition that I can operate off of.
Okay. So what I would say is that in its root cause, Christian anarchism, as argued by people such as Amon Hennessy and by Jacques Ellul, it's a philosophy and a critique and an ethical understanding of how we talk about government, how we talk about the fact that government, when we try to impose or import Christian values, quote unquote, into a government system, that we lose Christianity as a process of that. We also go away from the words of Jesus himself about understanding force. There's a aspect of it that is a pacifistic. I don't myself say that that one would argue that it should be completely that way, because I think when someone personally threatens you, you have the right to defend yourself. They've sacrificed that when they go on your property.
This is not actually helping me. I don't have any better understanding of what Christian anarchism is actually saying it wants than I did when you started with the opening.
So the best way, one of the best ways I could argue is this. So the idea is that government cannot can instruct moral order. Government can't. It's impossible for it to do so. And the only reason
back up. Why is it impossible for the government to impose moral order?
Well, because one, the people who are capable of having moral order, especially from a Christian worldview, they have it because of the Word of God, through their relationship with Christ, through the Holy Spirit, through the church.
This is a massive. Okay, so we can start with this first point of contention. So this, I think, is a massive oversimplification.
Okay.
So do you think that if stealing was legal, that otherwise moral people who were in perhaps a desperate situation would be more or less likely to steal?
People who are in immoral, if they were desperate to steal?
No. Listen to my question.
Okay.
Let us assume for a second that the government made stealing legal. And let us assume that you had people who had the moral foundation where they didn't want to steal.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that if those same people were in some kind of dire situation, that they would be more likely or less likely to steal based on the fact that it was now legal?
I think that if they had morality that was outside of that government structure, if it was something based in something rooted like in a Christian faith, they would not do that regardless of what the rule of law was.
Hang on. Somehow I'm muted on my stream. I'm not exactly sure. Okay, I think we're good now.
Yeah, you're good here.
Yeah, I think we're okay now. All right. So anyway, I don't know. I don't know exactly what happened there. So do you think they'd be less or more likely?
I can't answer that question in the way that you're framing it, because I don't think that you can make a wholesale assumption about people. If they're prone to just doing whatever they can, or they have weaker morals, then the government allowing them will allow
that's
that to
happen. That's a silly response. So then why have any laws at all?
Well, obviously the reason why we have laws is because we're trying to enforce some type of order.
Oh, we're trying to enforce some type of what kind of order?
An order where we believe that it would benefit people in their interactions.
Like moral orders, like you're not allowed to kill people, you're not allowed to steal things, you're not allowed to take people's retirements.
They come from moral.
It sounds like you're imposing morality on people, and that is just fine. And so if you say that we need to have laws so that we have some sort of social order, what you're agreeing to is that absent those laws, people are going to be more likely to do bad behavior.
I would say that the person who is prone to doing bad things is less likely, yes, with given laws. But I don't think that people who
ordinarily would not do those things can still be more likely to do a bad thing if it becomes legal to do the bad thing.
Again, if they have a truly objective standard of how they are arguing on, if they come from a value system that is outside of the state, then they're not going to adhere to the state on that. In fact, they will often.
So you don't think that men who are ordinarily great people can fall to temptation?
Oh, they can fall to temptation, but it's not because of whether there's an order that's imposed on that or not.
Yeah, I think it is.
I think
you're wrong, and let me give you an example.
Okay.
So let's start with an alcoholic.
Okay.
Do you think that an alcoholic would remove all the alcohol from his house?
Not if he doesn't want to. No.
I'm not asking if he doesn't want to. He's an alcoholic.
Clearly. Yeah.
But do you think that they usually remove the alcohol from their house if they're an alcoholic?
No.
It's because no. If they're a recovering alcoholic, if they want to not be an alcoholic anymore, would they get rid of the alcohol?
If they didn't want to be an alcoholic, yeah, they would sustain from it.
Yeah. So why would they remove the temptation from their home?
Because when you remove temptation, you are providing yourself with a better ability to abstain from it.
So a law, right, would operate in the same way as a deterrent, right? It would remove temptation from people who are already doing the right thing. So the recovering alcoholics are already doing the right thing, right? They're removing the alcohol from their home, so they're not tempted by the alcohol. The same exact thing can happen of moral men who are following and obeying laws, where absent those laws, that temptation would be present. Why does that not follow?
Because I think you're missing on one key element, and that key element is people who are not inclined to want to improve their life. If they're not inclined to want to do something, the government forcing them to do something will not guarantee it will happen.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's a guarantee. I'm saying that it's either
that's the point.
I'm saying it's either a deterrent or an incentive. You can't guarantee anything. There is no system which you can provide which is a guarantor of anything. Period.
Correct.
So the thing is that
the question is whether
we're getting into the question. So the first order of business here is whether or not laws offer a deterrent or if they offer incentives. And clearly you agree that they do.
I would argue that laws do offer a deterrent, yes.
If they offer a deterrent and they offer incentives, and what in the hell is wrong with having them?
What's wrong with having them is that there's nothing to prevent those laws, which are started off as a good intent, to be maligned or to be abused. Not only that, but the things that you are trying to change or you're trying to affect will not necessarily be affected in the more personal or spiritual aspect.
This is paradoxical. So then why have laws at all if your concern is that if we do have laws, they're just going to be abused? Then why not just get rid of the laws?
I'm not arguing that you should get rid of laws.
I know that's the paradox. The paradox here is, why is it that if you're not arguing we should get rid of laws, but at the same time you're saying that the government cannot enforce or impose morality via law, then we're in this big circle.
No,
it's really strange.
I'm not saying they can't do it. I'm saying the type of morality or the type of things which someone who is trying to import Christian values into, that those things that are synonymous with things like sin or the things that are happening, those things will be not necessarily there because of the fact that some of the issues that people are facing with the degens is not just a mere fact that they're criminals. It's that they're sinners. It's the fact that they are dealing with the fact that they may not know why they're in error. They may not know why they're a degen. And so the question comes, if we're going to really try to create a society that's better.
Okay, so you're conflating a couple things here.
Okay.
Whether or not they know why they're a degen has nothing to do with whether or not the government making an imposition, utilizing force for this imposition, works or doesn't work. It clearly works. Example, do you think that if we outlaw abortion, there's going to be less or more abortion?
Of course, when you ask these questions, of course, there would be less abortions.
Okay. Do you think that if we outlaw X, anything, that there's going to be less or more of X?
There's usually less.
Yeah, there's usually less. So clearly you can utilize force to impose moral systems on people, and they clearly work if it has less of the behavior that is not desired. Right.
But we're not just talking about morals that we could all agree as humans, or things that we know we could all agree as a thing that is beneficial for society. We have to look at also when you're trying to put Christian values and Christian morals. There
Yeah,
are aspects of
why
those
wouldn't
things that are,
Christian morals be able to be imposed?
because there's aspects of Christian truth that has to do with why people are doing the things. We know that Christ tells us that the world will
You
hate
can
us.
still you can still attack those problems while simultaneously enforcing Christian morality. Why couldn't you? It's not a thing which you can only have one or the other. You can have both. You can both impose morality on the population, and you can attack whatever these rooted issues are, which are spiritual. And
well, let me ask you this.
I don't understand this.
Do you believe that back like in the 40s or 50s in America, when we were pushing, we had a more Christian culture and Christian morals were being more, from a legal perspective, pushed? Do you think that dealt with things like teen pregnancy as much as it could have? Because in fact, we know that teen pregnancy was hidden and it went down, and we started seeing a rise of things like abortion clinics as a result of that, because there was a push for people to try to get that done. And instead of trying to go into the culture and go into people and speak to them in truth and love and say, this is why you shouldn't do it, because of the way in which we were doing a top-down system of trying to impose morality, it was causing people to then hide their degeneracy.
This is probably one of the worst arguments. So I'm going to steel man your argument, because now I at least understand what it is that you're saying. You think that right now evangelicals that there's less of them or more of them in the United States? Less or more evangelicals?
Well, I actually would say there's less evangelicals, and there's more people who are identifying themselves as probably evangelical. But
yeah, I mean,
purity of evangelicals
in the age of the internet, there's more people evangelizing than have ever had access to be evangelists than ever before. The message is being spread wide and far, trying to attack those same rooted issues that you're talking about, almost to no avail. By the way, this idea that if you just kind of get rid of the idea that Christians can also enforce or impose morality on society, and that somehow just only using the evangelize approach is superior, is baffling to me. That's totally baffling to me. How would that be superior?
Well, if you're looking at it from a pragmatic approach, that would be your likely conclusion of it. But I don't think you have to. I don't think you should be looking at it from a pragmatic approach, and that's why having
what
this
approach should we be looking at it for?
I think we should be looking at why when Christ himself, how he speaks to us, and how he especially through the Gospel of Matthew, of how we go about looking at what we do as individuals first before what we do as society. And the problem that we have is that there's this threat or this temptation or this push to want to say, if we can just make the society better by laws, which then we'll create Christianity. That is the false equivalency.
Do you think that if secularists had absolute power in the United States, that they would outlaw Christianity?
Oh, of course. And then we're going to get to a point probably where that doesn't happen.
And your defense to this is what?
And my defense to this is the words of Jesus Christ himself, which is to endure. The words of Christ, where he says, if they chase you out of town, then you dust the
so don't do anything.
Well, trust in the Lord first.
So your plan, so I just want to make sure your big plan here is to let secularists achieve power, do absolutely nothing about it, and then let them persecute you.
Trust God. Yes.
Let me tell you, it's not a parable, but it's an old story. That you hear older people tell a lot, right?
Okay.
And it's kind of wrapped as a joke, but it goes something like this. There's a woman who's on top of a building in the middle of a flood, and she prays to God to come rescue her. And God comes down, sends an angel down, and the angel says, listen, God's going to save you from this flood. And she says, oh, thank you. It's great. And a boat comes up and says, get in the boat. The guy says, get in the boat. And she says, no, God's going to save me. And then the Coast Guard comes up, says, get in the boat. And she says, no, God's going to save me.
I've heard this.
Okay. One. And then finally, the small fishing boat passes and says, lady, you're about to drown. Get in the boat. And she says, no, God's going to save me. And she drowns. And she goes to heaven. And she said, I thought you said you're going to save me. He said, I tried fucking 3 times to save you. What are you talking about? The reason that's such a kind of a great joke, the irony around the joke is exactly the irony which you are giving us today, which is essentially, hey, we trust and do nothing. We have faith and do nothing. And all we have to do is sit and wait. God gave us no agency. God
Well,
gave
he
us
did
no
give us
ability.
agency, but
Gave us,
he
hang on,
tells
gave
us how
us
to
no
direct that
ability.
agency,
Gave us no
Andrew. He tells
ability
us how
to
to direct that agency.
participate in the society around us. No,
Nope,
I'm sorry.
you're
Let
making
me
an
ask you
error
a
on that one.
question. Oh, I'm making an error on that one.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Well, let's find out if I'm making an error. Jesus Christ came from the line of what?
Came from the line of David.
And David was a what?
He was a king.
David was a king. Do kings usually have kingdoms?
Yes, they do.
Do they impose laws?
Yes, they do.
Did David impose some pretty brutal laws?
He did.
He did. That's really weird. That's really strange. That
And
you
that's
can
what makes
be
it
a
interesting that
king.
why Jesus would come from David, because if you think about it, go back all the way when people are going to Samuel and saying, your sons are not doing enough, we need a king. And they're on the surface, they're asking for a right thing. They're asking for a good thing because they're seeing that there is degens going on in the kingdom. But the problem is their intention.
And they demanded a king.
And they demanded a king.
They
but
demanded
God
a king to come in and impose what?
Law.
And order.
And it's the same. But the problem was they were also looking at other kingdoms. They also came from a place where they had been used to having the boot of the Egyptians. They had come from a time, they had all this in that culture. And what they didn't realize is that they did have agency in themselves to do with it, but they did not want to have to handle the responsibility themselves. But all of this just shows to me, which is that I think
are you talking about?
Of what Christ is saying.
When he's talking
in Matthew 12,
dude,
when he's telling people,
did he make apostles bishops?
Did he make apostles and bishops? Yeah. Before we go into the whole apostolic succession argument here,
I'm not even going to go into that argument. What I'm asking is, do they have some type of authority that other people do not have within the church?
Yes,
they do.
Yes.
So there's a hierarchy which exists there.
There was a hierarchy that existed.
Yeah. And do they have rules? Do they have regulations? Do they have orders? Do they have things in which they enforce on behalf of the church? Can they excommunicate your ass from the church?
They can, yes.
They can, yes. And so the thing is like, that's really weird because it seems like there's some type of hierarchical authority which is there to impose morals on you. And if you fall short of the morals, there's a consequence.
The problem, though,
super weird.
The
super
problem
weird,
you're having
dude.
here is that what you're saying is that you're going to now say that the way that we have the rules now in the church, the way we have the authority in the church now, that is the way in which Christ intended. And I think that's pretty clear that if you're going to say that, especially if you're going to say that from the perspective of wanting the church to be more involved in the government, then I think you're clearly missing the context of Jesus's words when he says, give unto Caesar what is Caesar's and give unto God what is God's, meaning there is a distinction and separation there. No, I don't think I am.
No, I think you are. I think that you seem to be misunderstanding that just because you're a Christian, that doesn't mean that you don't participate in the world around you. Especially to affect change.
It's absolutely different.
You don't have to live in a fucking degenerate society.
No,
at all. You can participate. Hang on. Let me finish. I'll let you talk.
Okay.
You can participate inside of the society that you're in order to have rules, orders, and regulations. And you can even impose those wills on other people who would violate them in order to keep your community in some way viable. There's no problem with that at all. That's the opposite of anarchy, by the way, the complete opposite of anarchy. Why in the world would it ever be problematic for you in a Christian community to impose orders and rules and regulations for how you want that community to be run? And if there's violators of those rules, there's some type of consequence. That makes no sense to me at all.
I know it doesn't make sense to you. So what I'm saying here is that first of all, it doesn't come from a top-down system. In fact, I think the top-down system is part of the reason why we have the problems that we have. I agree. When you start with the vocations that you have, whether that be the vocation of being a father, or vocation of being a mother, or vocation of being a husband, when you start with those vocations that you have, you start with those small circles. Yes, there are times when you have to impose rules, you have to impose authority. However, understanding what is what of God and what is of man,
that's not anarchy. That's not anarchy.
It is. It is in the sense of this voluntarism and understanding the personal responsibility that we have to come to Christ.
Okay,
and to live that vocation without trying to believe that
society
we can have
right now.
Moral order pushed on us through a government because people think that the superficial infrastructure of hierarchy is itself the guarantor of.
Then tell me right
truth.
now, in the current society of the United States, by this definition of voluntarism, right? How is this not an anarcho-Christian state right this second?
Well, it isn't an anarcho-Christian state, and I would argue that.
Why isn't it?
There is
It
no such
sounds
thing
like
as
it
an
is.
anarcho-Christian. There is no such thing as an anarcho-Christian.
Yeah,
state.
no, stop. Your definition of voluntary is, or voluntary participation.
Mm-hmm.
In the United States, you cannot impose your religion on another person. You agree with that, right? Including Christianity.
Correct.
You're not allowed to do that. You can only evangelize them, right?
Correct.
Okay, and you can't impose your moral authority on people, right?
Correct.
Okay, and everything in the United States is strictly voluntary, right?
Almost everything, yes.
Yeah. So how is this not exactly the state that you're postulating?
Because I'm not arguing for a Christian anarcho state. I'm arguing for Christian anarchism as a system of how we ethically deal with the issue of how much or how less we try to import the church into the government, of Christian values because we do see that when Christian values start to be forced and start to be artificially put into things, it ceases to be both Christian. It ceases to both be those things. And
that sounds like the society we currently live in that you're postulating. What are the distinctions between this society we live in right now and what it is you're advocating for? That's my question.
The difference that I'm advocating, what I'm saying is that the Christian anarchists would argue the personal responsibility that they have. And so again, anarchy in the anarchical system, it's all about voluntarism. It's about not forcing people. It's about understanding those things. But take that outside, that is part of it. Then you take the Christian aspect of it, which is the understanding that as Christians, our primary role is to teach people through our vocation, is to reach people through our vocation. And
how is that different than what we have right now? It sounds like it's exactly the same thing.
Well, we may have something like that right now, or similar to that degree.
Well, then give me the differences then.
Well, again, I don't think you're arguing of differences because, again, you wouldn't call this.
So there's no difference.
States. I'm saying there's no.
Well, you wouldn't call it that, but by your definition, I would call it that. Sounds like it's exactly what we have right now: a voluntary society based around the fact that Christians cannot impose their will on anyone. Sounds like the exact society we live in right this second.
But what I'm saying is that it's not about it in an ideological or governance system. I'm talking about it from an ethical system of how we deal with the issue. Yes, you're right.
This sounds like ethically it's the same thing. I don't even see a distinction ethically.
I'm going to say it's very close, but obviously we would argue that this society is post-Christian at best. Yes.
So you think that the United States then is a Christian anarchist society? That's what you're advocating for? Is the status quo?
I told you.
Then you need to give me a delineation. Then give me the delineations. Give me the things that set it apart. That's what I want to hear.
What do you mean the things that set it apart?
What makes the United States not a Christian anarchy? What makes it not that?
Because what I'm talking about is from a purely individual ethical system. That is not a system that can be imported into a state system. It can't be put into a cultural system because of the fact that there are people out there who are in error, they're in sin, they don't have a relationship with Christ, whatever, they're not in the church, which way you want to express that idea. Because of that, what we're seeing is we live in a fallen world, in a country that is at odds with a lot of, like I said, at best it's post-Christian, right? If it was ever Christian at all,
this doesn't make any sense. I'm trying to figure this out again. I'm trying to be as charitable as I can be to this view.
I know,
and I'm trying to understand it. But what you're saying here is that no, this is not a Christian anarchy society, because in a Christian anarchy society, this blank
there's no
thing
such thing
would
as a
be
Christian
different.
Anarchy state. That's
I know. I
know,
but whichever one you're proposing, if there was,
I'm not proposing it. I'm not proposing Christian anarchy as an ideology. I'm not proposing it for a government. I'm not proposing it for a society or a cultural system. I'm saying it works. And at the end of my opening statement, I did say,
wait.
I'm not advocating this as a system. I'm not advocating this as a system that should be in itself wholesale adopted. I am saying it is an important conversation, is an important ethical way of how we deal with this question, especially because we are seeing people more and more trying to push.
Let us assume. Hang on. Let us pretend.
And nationalism.
I get it. Let us pretend in a hypothetical, that there was a Christian anarcho society. In a hypothetical, purely hypothetically. what does that society look like that this society doesn't look like?
It's not going to look, there's nothing in that, within that system that will create a society that would be different from what a lot of other societies look like. Because again, the point is not so much about creating society as it's about how we live within the society. It's very much akin to things like the Benedict option. It's very much akin to the things of the idea of how we live as dissidents in a society, how we through our organic vocations and through our individual lives promote the values of Christianity without the going overboard and pushing ourselves into a system where we start saying, let's just shame all the Coomers because that's the only way they're going to stop doing the porn.
I guess then if Christian anarchism just means all societies which exist, I don't even know where to go with the argument, honestly. Like if there's no delineation between this and any other society, then I don't even fucking understand it. I don't even understand what you're advocating.
Because I think you're looking purely for an ideological system. I think you're trying to advocate, and I know you've said this in the past that is mainly one of the goals.
This is not an ideological system.
No, I'm saying it's not a wholesale ideological system. It is a very individualistic idea based on philosophies of how we cooperate, how we start from the bottom up, how we talk about things, how we fix issues with the understanding. And that's the problem. I will agree is, and that's my point. Yes, in a system, if any world system, any government system, you're going to need force of law to be able to ensure its ability.
So let me try it this way.
But we can agree
that
totalitarian governments and authoritarian governments do exist, and as a result, what is the stopgap for that? What causes
we hypothetically,
what would cause us to be if we adopted a system of Christian
hang on. Let me ask a question. Maybe
what would stop that from going into a system where we become a Christian authoritarian state? Because at that point,
what would be a problem if we were
being Christian if it was authoritarian?
Why?
Because authoritarianism is anathema to Christianity.
Bullshit. Prove it.
No. Christ himself tells us these things. We know that Christ tells us that blessed are the meek who inherit the earth. We know that Christ tells us.
Yeah, but what does that mean?
What does it mean? It means that people who are humble, people who seek after the Lord first, no matter what happens on earth, they will inherit.
Does that mean that they can't have authority?
It means you have to be careful because blessed are the peacemakers.
That be careful doesn't tell me anything.
I'm saying,
does it mean you can't have authority because you're humble?
It means that you have to have the ultimate authority, which is trust in Christ.
Yeah, I get that. But can you have no earthly authority and be humble? I don't get that.
The problem is the more centralized authority you get, the more you have to impose force as a way.
No, you don't.
Yes, you do.
The less force you have to impose.
No, because
yes. Do you think
maybe at one point you've already won a war
for
it? You get to that point.
Hey, let's prove it. Let's prove it. I can prove it to you right now. Somalia right now, okay? Lots of force going on, not a lot of law.
Right.
Here in the United States, a whole lot of law, not a lot of force going on. Right? Really weird though, because there we have kind of a more anarcho style system. Here we have more of an authoritarian style system. Super weird. I thought that you just got done telling me that should be reversed, that wherever this anarchy system is, where there's no central authority, there should be less of this type of violence, right?
I didn't make
less force.
I didn't make that equation.
Yes, you did. You said you said centralizing authority.
I said the more centralizing authority you get, the more in order to get that power, the more you have to use force. Now that does not necessarily mean by violence. It means by coercion. It could mean by using the threat of
laws. Are laws coercion? Are laws coercion?
Law has to use coercion to some degree.
So then coercion's not even bad by this definition.
It is.
Unless you're saying so, then laws are bad.
I'm saying that laws can be bad. Yes, they can
be. They can be is not answering the question. I didn't ask you if they can be bad. I asked you if they are inherently bad or not.
Laws are not inherently bad,
but they are inherently coercive. So therefore, coercion is not inherently bad.
The more higher power and authority.
So let me help you out here. So let me help you out here with your position.
All right.
So if laws are not inherently bad and all laws use coercion, then you have to be saying that coercion is not inherently bad.
No, I'm saying
yes. No. Repeat my argument. Repeat my argument to me.
You said if laws depend on coercion, and and laws themselves aren't bad, and you're saying that coercion can't itself be bad by the logic of what
right.
Yes.
That's and can you give me a rebuttal to that?
I can't.
Actually deals with the logic. If A then B, if B then C.
Because what I'm saying, and maybe I misspoke, so let me get back and recorrect what I'm saying. Laws that are that require more coercion, that would require more authority, it would require more force. Those laws, the more that centralization goes up, the more that power it requires up, the more that becomes a problem.
Yeah, that doesn't tell me anything, or it doesn't become a problem.
Coercion in a very small miniature sense is not bad. What makes coercion bad is when it becomes bigger. That's the thing with anything. So
well, let's find out. Let's hang on. Let's find out if this is true or not.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
Would you agree that a law which directly could potentially penalize, half the population of the United States would be highly coercive?
It's not necessarily going to be, but it can be. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, because it's scale, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So like an anti-abortion law would be highly coercive, wouldn't it?
It could be.
Yeah. Not very bad though, is it?
The result doesn't just because the ends are good doesn't mean the means are themselves.
Yeah, the means here of enforcing that you can't murder children aren't good.
No, that's not what I said.
Well, okay, and this is what I'm asking you. Would you want an overly coercive anti-abortion law which says that women can no longer have abortions or not?
What I would want is for us to be able to first, before we even think about using law to try to stop abortion, I would ask that we try to go into the communities and go into people and speak to this issue and advocate that they don't do it.
Oh, you mean like they did in order to get them to do it in the first place? Because that's what happened when they equaled the playing field, is that Margaret Sanger and the rest of the eugenicists went into black communities and used the church in order to have them advocate for it.
Yeah.
Have them advocate for it. So the thing is like,
so now you're saying that
wait a second. I want to make sure I get this right.
Sense.
You wouldn't want to see a law imposed outlawing abortion tomorrow.
That's not what I'm saying.
I'm asking you.
Huh?
Would you want a law outlawing abortion tomorrow?
Would I want a law that would outlaw abortion tomorrow?
Yeah.
It would be nice. Yeah, it'd be great.
And so you would support such a law?
Depending on how the law is made, yes.
You go to jail if you have an abortion forever.
I don't think that would be a just thing.
Oh, okay. So if you murder somebody, should you go to jail for life?
I don't necessarily know if that's a just without understanding all the circumstances in the situation. I think that
it's murder, which means an unjustified killing of somebody on purpose.
Well, now we're arguing intent, and that is where punishment comes into play, because
that's what murder is an unjustified killing.
Okay, but are you arguing that almost every woman at some point in the history of mankind has knowingly known these things? If they were built up in a system,
I'm not arguing about the history of mankind. I'm arguing about current history. So what history in the making? I'm arguing about common knowledge. Right this second, do you agree with me that abortion is murder?
I do believe it's a murder.
So this would be an unjustified killing.
It would be an unjustified killing.
So if you penalized a woman, let's just say for 20 years in jail, would you support that?
I think that's probably might be a better thing, but the jail itself is another problem and another system of a faulty system of how we deal with law and how we deal with crime and punishment.
Okay, but if you would endorse a law tomorrow using this kind of coercion in order to stop this fucking horrific thing from happening, right? Then how is this an advocacy for the system of Christian anarchy, which by your definition proposes instead no such law be made, and rather you just try to use some type of argumentation to convince people out of it?
Because what I'm arguing for is an understanding that Christians have to endure and acknowledge that the world cannot be perfect. It will not be perfect. For whatever reason,
nobody's saying they don't say that, dude.
I know, but that's the problem, is that this is the threat that happens when we say, well, if we could just do this and we could just make this magic little thing happen, everything would be all better off by tomorrow. There are lots of things that cause the problems that we
Yeah,
have.
you know, the thing is that this is kind of silly too, right? So if you can't pay your rent, for instance, and somebody assists you in paying your rent, that definitely makes the problem of you not being able to pay your rent that month go away, right?
No.
If you can't pay your rent and somebody pays your rent that month, the problem of you paying your rent that month went away, right?
It would, yeah. Oh, no, sorry. I was trying to understand what you're saying. Yeah, I see what you're saying now. Yes.
Yeah. So there are immediate things which you can do very quickly for all sorts of different issues.
Yes.
In order to solve those problems quickly. That doesn't mean that it's a utopia or that in every single case it's going to be perfect, right? But you can still have something that's way better, way better. Just like a law which is coercive. Now, you just got done saying, for instance, you don't like the idea of jail. Right?
That's what I said. I said I don't like the idea of how jail is right now.
Well, what should jail be?
I think that jail should be where people who are dangerous, people who are a danger to society should be.
Jail should be what?
A place for violent offenders who are a threat to society.
And that's it.
Yeah, I think there's other ways you can reform and punish people without going to a correctional facility like that. Yeah.
So what if they sell drugs to little kids?
Well, that right there is a danger to society.
Yeah, but you said violent.
Well, there's a lot of violence in drugs.
Yeah, but you yourself are not committing a violent act by selling drugs.
Okay, so what I'm saying is that there are situations where putting someone in prison because they're a threat to society or because they're a violent criminal is justifiable.
You mean like what we do right now?
Yes.
Okay, so then there's no. So I don't even understand. What's your issue with prison or jail?
The issue is how we go about looking at, because with jail we have a lot of people who are put in jail who are non-violent offenders who then become violent, or they.
You mean like they stole they stole grandma's
other types of criminals?
Oh, you mean like they stole grandma's retirement money?
Well, I mean, obviously they did something to put them in that situation.
Yeah. So what the fuck is wrong with sending them to jail?
What I'm saying, and again, it goes back to whether
that sounds like they're everybody who's going to jail is a threat to society if they're breaking the laws, right?
Understanding what laws they broke and why they broke the laws, I think it matters.
Yeah, maybe that matters at a kind of a foundational level, trying to understand it so that you can solve more, so that they do this less, right? But there's still going to be tons of people who just break the law, and you send their ass to jail, right? It's what you do with them.
Yeah,
that's it. So I'm trying to figure out, I guess, since I think what you mean when you say Christian anarchism is just status quo plus evangelism. That's all it really sounds like to me. Status quo
it's not,
and plus evangelism.
I understand that's why what I'm saying is I'm arguing for us as Christians to think about how we deal with the issue of societal change without focusing and putting too much emphasis, because we have to be careful when we're talking about societal change, because there are things that are more important than politics. There are things that are more important than ideological positions. There's more things. And we also know that in all things that are happening, no matter what happens, we have to have ultimate trust in God. We have to put trust in God. And sometimes when we try to solve some of our problems through a system of government, through a system of regulations, where we're trying to then ourselves fix the problem, we can sometimes make worse problems. We a lot of times can also put less focus on things.
Unfortunately, John, right, I've been charitable, but now I really do understand this position pretty well now that we've been going through it. So now I'm going to unfortunately have to end this position very quickly for you. It's going to be a bad look for you, but it needs to be done. John, you have a magic wand in your hand tomorrow that you can wave, and any laws you want to come into fruition, and any laws you want change, and any government change that you want happens immediately. Any of those things happen at a legislative level immediately. Which ones do you do?
I don't even know where to start on that.
Yeah, none. You couldn't name a one, could you? Not a one.
Of a law that I'd want changed?
Any laws or any government change or anything? You couldn't name anything, could you?
Well,
can you give us a single prescription, John? A single one?
The reason is because I do not believe that what ails the world is not going to be by trying to fix the world, but by fixing the individual.
So you wouldn't do anything with the wand.
I again, without understanding what you mean by, I mean, because again, here's the problem with what the question and what it is implying is that all the things that we know naturally and logically that happen as a result of laws happening and becoming reality, you can't divorce those things. And if you could, then we're talking about living in another world that doesn't have anything to do with the real world.
Yeah, I know, but you know what a hypothetical is designed to do.
I know what a hypothetical is designed for.
What is it designed for?
Hypothetical is designed to put you in a position of
it's just designed to test your logic. It's just designed to test logic.
Yes, absolutely, yes.
Just designed to test your logic. So, John, on the ground in this hypothetical world, which is a complete mirror to this one, except there's one magic wand which exists, and when you wave it, you can have any policy changes that you want. You pick up the wand, and you do what with it?
I don't know, because to me, I don't think about government or laws in the way that I think about what I need to do as an individual, as I need to do in my vocation, what we can do as a church, what we can do in outreach and communities, because the prescription for the world that we have is not in trying to make a law that will make it better or try to make a law that will prevent something from happening. It is about understanding that the world is fallen, we are in sin, we are under the dominion of the devil, and that the answer to everything, and there is going to never be a perfect, we know that, but my important thing is this: yes, if there was an ability to take a magic pill or to have a magic wand and say, hey, I want everybody to be able to do the right thing and
I'm not asking you about. Hang on. The reason I specifically did not give you the ability to change human behavior is because I want to know, if we were to map on what John wants, and he had the ability to change any policy whatsoever, any government officials, any of these things that he could right now, right this second, it's in your lap. You just wave the wand and it happens. I can give you dozens off the top of my head. You can't give me one?
I mean, other than I would prefer a decentralization of our system. But then again, that would require me to believe that the way of getting that is by going against the thing that I think is the problem in the first place.
Yeah, it just seems like mental masturbation to me. It seems like what you're doing is saying, look, it would sure be nice if we could change the minds of people to do X. Great. Go ahead. Go out there. John, I'm not stopping you. Go change everybody's mind and make them better. I can't
change everybody's mind. That's the reality. I can't change everybody's mind.
Well, I mean, go change as many minds as you can in order to make it a reality. But I'm just going to tell you right now that, unfortunately, you're going to have to impose law. You're going to have to impose will. You're going to have to impose some kind of order in order for people, even people who you think are good, ethical people who have a great grounded foundation, can run across situations where they lose their shit, dude. Where they just lose their shit. That's human nature. That's part of the ontology of men. Sometimes they just lose their fucking minds for no good reason. Good moral men, been moral for 40 fucking years, never done anything wrong, go to church on Sunday, only humping the missionary style. They do. One day, they just lose their fucking shit for no good reason, man. And in that particular case, and there's many such cases, you're going to have law, and you're going to have order, and you're going to have forced doctrine. You're going to have all these things. Your move to decentralization doesn't tell me what you actually want to do. It doesn't really tell me much.
Right, because you believe that the way to solve problems is by using law and by using government, and to believe that somehow will fix the problems. And I agree.
It sure seems to fix a lot of problems when you have control of government agencies. It seems to fix tons of problems.
Right.
So it's true that government can impose problems, but it can also fix them.
You know who would say that right now? That people would say, well, you know what would fix the problem with all these angry parents at PTA meetings is if we, pass a law that says, the FBI, we get the FBI involved. There's a lot of times where it is very effective to use a law that will help.
Wait, you mean all those schools
that societies don't want?
You mean all those schools where it's voluntary to send your children to?
Well, yeah, true.
Isn't that what you want?
Huh?
Isn't that what you wanted? You wanted them to be able to voluntarily participate, John. That's what it is right now.
I'm saying you're missing my point, and I think you know why you're missing the point. Because
why would it matter if the school had, let's just say the school rolled out the policy and said, everybody at the PTA, the FBI is going to be investigating you. It's totally voluntary, right, John?
What do you mean it's totally voluntary?
Totally voluntary. Send your kid to the school. It's totally
Fine,
voluntary to be a member of the PTA.
If I had one,
yeah, that's it. So it's a completely voluntary system. You're just basically just advocating the status quo. That's it.
No, I'm acknowledging that the world, and this is the problem, is people that would look at my position and say, you don't want to change the world, you don't want to fix the world. The problem is when it comes with understanding what is the fundamental problem in the world, and the problem is why people do the things they do. We have to look at that and not just say, because it's easy to say, well, yeah, we'll make a bunch of crime, or we'll make a bunch of laws now, and then we'll deal with the issue. Well, we've been doing that for how long? And we've never really dealt with the issue of why there is crime in the way that there is. A lot of times, what
that's because
creates crime is the law.
Yes,
we pass a law and say you can't do this type of behavior, and then it creates another force of crime.
This is an issuance of modernity. No, governments were far more effective, even in the United States, just 60 years ago, when it came to crime, when it came to punishment, when it came to these types of issues. Okay, in the 1920s, 1930s, 1940s, 1950s, yes, there was limited pockets of organized crime. I would argue that there's even more organized crime now. They just use blue-collar tactics rather than bootleg tactics. Okay, but again, I think, no, there has been many, many times where the precursor of law has been far more effective, and people have been able to deal with these types of things on a localized level in a much easier way. And that you are basically just looking at modernity and saying, oh, it's unfixable. Fuck it, right? I'm just black-pilled. It's unfixable. Screw it. The only thing that we can do is decentralize government. Well, John, why not take government over using the processes which are available to you so that we can do something, instead of just going, well, if I had a magic wand, I don't even know what the fuck I would do if I had power.
I've seen this.
If you were Emperor John, you don't even know what you would do.
I've seen this type of philosophy and what it does. And when we get to this point where we're focused more on the organization than the message, when we're focused more on how something works and making something happen a certain way, and then we lose something along the way in that process, we lose things. And that when you look at the words of Jesus, when he's warning about it, when he's like, yeah, give honor to honor, who is to honor due. Yeah, there are times when the life is, he's not advocating for slavery, but he's acknowledging that people are going to be in slavery. There's evil is going to happen. And when that is, you don't try to fight it. This is the instinct of humanity.
You don't try to fight it?
Evil.
Oh, you just let evil rule you.
No.
Well, then how do you not let evil rule you if you're unwilling to fight it, John? By the way,
there's more reason fighting than just
let me give you a different parable, right? Or perhaps a saying, if you want to say it that way.
Okay, whatever.
Evil prevails when good men what?
Do nothing.
Do nothing. And your prescription is good men should do nothing when evil comes around, because
that's not my prescription.
Literally, John, I'm going to give you your position. Nope, I'm not. I'm going to give you your position back to you, buddy. Nope. Here's your position, buddy. Here's what you said, buddy. You said what happens is evil tries to rule us, and we're too busy trying to force our way back against evil.
Yes,
that would be good men doing something. That's the point.
But doing something does not necessarily prescribe that we have to do something in a centralized way that would allow us to also risk making more.
Then you can't combat it. You can't combat it. You can't combat these giant states which exist cannot be combated absent other giant states. They can't be. It's impossible.
That's not what I'm saying.
It's like saying, "Oh, okay."
That's not what I'm saying. So you're
no, but it is
straw man's here to try to.
I'm not
diminish my point.
John, let me finish my point.
Yeah.
Okay. Don't cut in. Let me just finish the point. What I'm saying to you is that no, this type of thing, when you're talking about, they don't have to use force to push back against the evil. What the hell does that mean? Then what can they do? What can they do absent that to push back?
What do you think the Bible says?
Yeah, I know what it says, but are you advocating from your worldview that it's telling you to be passive and just take it?
There's times when it says dust off your feet and move on. It tells us that not to worry about the wicked because they will flourish with grass. So there's a prescription there, because when men worry, when men put too much thought into something, whether that be the evils of the world or of a state, or when it's dealing with whether or not if we're concerned about what we're going to eat tomorrow, the point is first we have to then put our trust in God. We put our trust in God first, making sure that whatever prescription that we have for whatever issues we're dealing with, we're first and foremost trusting God. That has to be the primary thing. And that's why, as a Christian anarchist, what I'm saying is
there's no reason why you can't do that and still resist evil. There's no reason you can't do both.
But there is a potential for you to lose focus of Christ,
which is worse than doing nothing.
I think to lose focus on Christ is a greater.
You're not
problem.
losing focus on Christ.
I'd rather lose my soul than gain the world.
You keep on baking in that somehow if you resist marauding bands of lunatics.
No, I actually said if they come on your property, they've sacrificed. There are.
They don't need to come on your property to cause all sorts of problems. What are they burning down the neighbor's property? Right? Any of this is cause for you to do something, John. Not just stand there and go with your thumb up your ass and say, well, I hope God takes care of it.
That's not
right.
What I'm saying.
That is what you're saying. Your whole position, here's John's whole position. Your whole position is, don't worry, man. Don't worry about it, man. Because as long as you have faith in Christ and God and Jesus Christ, your Savior, man, you got nothing to worry about.
What good does it do to gain the world and lose your soul?
Yeah, but you're not gaining the world by resisting evil. That's not you gaining the world.
Gaining the world when you try to
what you're referring to is a conversation which happens with Satan, where Satan offers the entire world to Jesus Christ.
Right.
Okay. And he says, hang on, he says no. Okay. Him saying no was resisting evil. Yes, you agree?
Yes, that's a good way of resisting evil.
Yes. That's a great way of resisting evil. Saying no. Right?
Right.
Saying no.
But he didn't Sparta kick him off the freaking thing, go, I am Jesus. And, did a kick and then he goes off the
Didn't have to. He didn't have to. Because he didn't. But why? Because the ultimate force lay with Christ. Because he could have.
Oh, he could have if he wanted to. Yes.
What could Satan do? He was totally at his mercy.
Yes.
He didn't have the world to give him.
He did have the world to give him.
No, he didn't.
He did.
No, he didn't. It was already Jesus's world. Jesus is God incarnate.
The world that exists now is not. It belongs to Satan. We are told in the Bible that he is the principalities of the air. We know that he is.
I'm sorry.
Even though he has been defeated when it comes to salvation, he is still.
So John, Jesus Christ goes, no more Satan. Is there a Satan?
Well, that's going to happen at the end on Judgment Day.
Okay, so John, answer my question. Jesus Christ goes, no more Satan. Is there a Satan?
If he was to do that, yeah, there would be no more Satan.
There would be no more Satan. So who has the ultimate force here?
What I'm saying is he did.
John, answer my question. Who has the ultimate force?
Christ
right.
Does,
so you can't offer me if I have the monopoly on force, you can't offer me something which is already mine.
Right. But what you're not understanding is that he did have an understanding of the world, that he has the world to some degree, because it's fallen. As soon as Eve and sin entered in the world, we know that. But here's the thing is that I think is important, because again, at that time, Jesus does what? He fasts. At the time in when he is completely humbling himself and he's completely putting himself underneath his physical needs, that is when Satan comes. And there is something to be said about that, of where when you are not allowing yourself to be tempted by the threat, because you say I'm black-pilled, but I say anybody that's like, yeah, the degens are coming for us. We gotta kick back and fight back. Then like that to me is a black-pilled response.
Then roll over and take it, John.
I'm not going to roll over and take it.
You are. That's your whole plan. Your whole plan is, hey, you know what? No worries. You do you, and I'll just roll over and.
That's not what I'm saying. That's another.
No, that is what you're saying. What else are you saying?
I'm not saying.
You're saying, oh, when the degens come, when all these people are trying to enforce their morality on us, I'm just gonna take it.
No, I'm not.
Then what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do about it?
I am going to stand up against it. I will speak against it. I will advocate against it if that means I get thrown in jail as a result of it.
Will you use legislative bodies in order to legislate against it?
Whatever means that I have that I can, that does not put me in a position of where I'm trying to force something or put my trust in government or political parties.
So nothing.
No.
So you're gonna finger wag at them, John. You're gonna be like, now. Now listen here. I know you sucked 100 dicks this week. You really shouldn't be doing that. I don't like it. It's not good for you to do that. That's what you're gonna do, John. That's John's big plan. John Moseman's gonna finger wag.
My big plan is to go, hey, I'm a red pill ether, and you're not going to be able to come over here, you degen, and then I'm going to like take a bazooka and just kill them all, right? That's what I'm going to do.
Oh, I mean, that kind of escalated quickly. Nobody's talking about any sort of violence. What I'm saying
that's what happens when someone conflates.
Yeah, what I'm saying, right? What I'm saying to you specifically is, well, I wouldn't even care what you said. I'm just looking out for this guy's channel from TOS. But again, it just seems to me that all you're willing to do is finger wag. So here, John Moseman's prescription is, look, when all this shit's going wrong and all these people are doing these horrible things and it's completely fucking society up and it's screwing up millions of children and little kids are having their genitals rearranged, you're going to finger wag harder. You're just going to be like, you should really stop now. That's really because, well, now I could get the government to come in and stop you from doing genital mutilation, but you know, that could potentially lead to not enough pickles on your hamburger. So we can't do that.
How would Christian populism stop that?
Christian populism would utilize the force of law and Christian ethics in order to make.
How would you get that? How would you get that?
Well, the first thing that you would do is you would try to utilize the system in order to put people in legislative positions and tell them it's perfectly acceptable to rule based on their morality.
And how do you do that with the current system?
Stop talking, John. I'm trying to answer your question.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so when you're in a position of authority, right, I don't think that there's anything wrong with making moral impositions. I think that governments not only do it all the time, but that's probably okay to do. In most situations, I think it's okay to do. I think that if the person who's making the impositions is ethical, then the impositions that they're making are good. It's good to impose ethics on people. It's good to make them not sacrifice children. It's good to not let them chop off little kids' penises. It's good to do those. It's good to not let them jack you full of TRC or whatever it is. It's good. All of that's fine. I don't see a problem with it. What I think is that Christians have been beaten down by milquetoast fence setters like yourself who tell them, just have faith in God, man, and the rest will just take care of itself. It doesn't, John. The rest doesn't just take care of itself. Yes, your immortal soul may be secured, but that's not helping the rest of society. And why shouldn't we participate if we're in positions where we can rule morally? Why shouldn't we?
If it means how it would affect your faith, if it affect the way you are,
it's not going to affect your faith. How's it going to affect your faith?
It can. When you start focusing on things,
doing nothing can.
How would you say that? How could
because you can say if there is so here's what I think. I think the reason there's so many atheists who are leaving Protestant churches, that their faith is affected because they go, if there was a God, there's no way he would let society crumble like this. If there was a God, there's no way that he would have allowed all of this madness to happen.
He'll allow humans to
if there was a God, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think that the majority of the crisis of faith is because Christians don't act, and we know we should act. And so people see us as impotent and weak, and they see us as pansies who won't do anything. We just kind of take the Moseman approach and roll over and take it.
Now, I would rather die being having my integrity and having done right by the words of Christ than
you can have both.
No, you can't.
Yeah, you can rule and still be a devout Christian. Many saints have ruled and were devout Christians. Many kings have ruled and were devout Christians.
So like Henry VIII, that kind of person, right?
Yeah. There can be bad rulers, but there's also great rulers who were kings.
So what my point of what I'm trying to say on this is
the point of what I'm trying to say on this, John, is that you can have both. You can be a good king. You can be a good politician. You can be a good man at the same time. You can be a devout Christian at the same time. It's not you're a Christian who believes in Christ, or you roll over and let degens fuck you up the butt. It's not an either or proposition.
What do you think is the primary role of a Christian?
The primary role of him in which context?
What is the personal mission? Whatever you want to call it, the ultimate goal, the ultimate thing on which a Christian
is to bring people into the body of the Church of Christ.
Okay. Now, if that is the case, in fact, the primary thing, then is it then something that happens by forcing them to do certain things, or is it by showing them in the word, showing them the truth, inviting them to church, doing things?
You can't force them to be Christians. What are you talking about? Nobody's saying that would be the elimination of free will. You can't get inside of a person's brain and force them to be a Christian.
But you do believe in forcing them to go to jail if they don't prescribe to certain Christian methods or morals or ethics.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what's the contradiction?
The contradiction is that when you are dealing with people who have legitimate issues of sin, when they're dealing with the issue, you believe is not to try to seek to show them their error of their ways and then edify them and to help them see the light of Christ and invite them to church and let them partake in the sacraments and be a full member of the church and be regenerative in that. You would rather just say, go to jail for the rest of your life and, you degen, just, we're going to throw you in a pit because you don't succumb to our cultural standards.
Wait, I'm sorry. Are you saying that you think that there should be a cultural prism? So like if you're a cannibal somewhere, you shouldn't go to jail?
I'm saying
if cannibalism is legal in a place, John, are they doing something bad?
Of course they are.
Yeah. So what's wrong with sending them to jail?
So your prescription for people who would sin.
I don't mean to interrupt. I just want to let you guys know we've gotten to an hour. Yeah. But I did let you both know if it was good and we wanted you.
Yeah, I want to finish up.
Extend it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I just want to know, why is it that legislating for Christian ethics is bad? Why would that be bad?
Because when you start focusing on trying to force things to happen in a way in which put your mind off of what is the role, when you think about what Christ is telling people when he's talking about being humble, when he's talking about seeking after righteousness, that when you speak of those types of things and you're doing it with the force of saying, hey, you got to go to jail because you watched a bunch of porn or whatever, or you got to go to jail because you did this or that, that you're denying those people the ability to come to church. If you're denying those ability,
you're denying them the ability to come to church, they murder somebody, John.
Well, there's a difference between that type of crime and other sins, which we're also talking about, which you would like to probably also.
Oh no, John, that's terrible. Oh, whatever will we do if porn is outlawed? Oh, says, man, if people can't coom in a cave in their house to chicks all day long, society is really going to deteriorate. And it would be really un-Christ-like. Wouldn't it be un-Christ-like to advocate that pornography was made illegal and that people who distributed it
I have no problem with advocating for that.
Then what the fuck is your problem with me advocating for legislating Christian ethics?
Because there's a point in which
the only reason you think porn is bad is because of Christian ethics, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, and you want pornography illegal, right?
I think that's the preferred.
Then you're legislating Christian ethics, John.
Well, I
like that. Just like that, John.
I prefer it.
Yeah. So why not legislate it?
But because the reason why I can't legislate it, or the reason is I have no problem telling my representatives to go do that. But that's a bottom down going up. It's not me trying to.
That sure sounds like it.
Because no, it's not.
So you elect the legislator, then you go to the legislator and you demand that the legislator outlaw thing you don't like. Legislator does that. This is John Moseman using the political process to enforce Christian ethics, just like that.
No, it's me asking if we could ask, and it's about me going and letting my opinion be known. It's about me going into the public and saying we should outlaw these things.
No, you're not going to the public and saying that. You're going to a legislator and telling them to outlaw and then enforcing it.
And there's nothing wrong as an individual doing that. My issue is not with individuals working within that system. My issue is with when we try to convert and try to put Christianity into certain systems that are not necessarily intrinsically Christian, or given the nature of the world, especially if it's a post-Christian society, of whether or not you're going to be able to do it. Because
give me a society in which Christian ethics would not be compatible if you had force doctrine on your side.
It's not about the issue of it's not compatible. It's the issue of whether or not you can, because again, in order to get to that point, a lot of the things we have to do is we have to win the culture war. And it's going to be very difficult to win the culture war when you're trying to tell people you're going to throw them in prison for watching porn.
Why?
Because what they're going to look at it is whenever you try to force someone to stop someone, they're going to double down and want to do it again. They're going to, unless they have that personal reason for seeing the error of their ways, they're not going to want to do something. So at that point, all you're doing is punishing them. At that point, all you're doing is punishing them.
So if you tell people that they can't murder people, they're going to double down and murder people.
Murder position, and that's not the only thing that's here. Obviously,
are they going to grape? Are they going to double down and grape if you tell them not to grape, John?
What's that?
Are they going to double down and grape if you tell them not to grape?
We're talking about certain.
John, are they going to double down and steal if you tell them not to steal?
Some do, yeah.
Which ones? Which people do you know? You know people who are like, I would never have stolen anything except those fuckers told me I wasn't allowed to. That's never happened in your life, John. Listen.
You're telling me that when
something I'm going to tell you something never happened.
People buy alcohol underage.
This has never happened in the history of drinking alcohol underage. Not immoral. Now, by the way, going back to this,
John, it's illegal though.
It's not immoral. People ignore non-immoral laws constantly. They don't care. The theft is immoral. And so you're legislating against this immoral thing. And I'm going to tell you again, something that's never happened to you in your life. You've never met a single person who was like, I never would have stolen anything except that people told me I couldn't. That's never happened to you, John. And it's never going to, because it's absurd. It's an absurd position.
Okay. What I'm saying is there are people who will do, there are people that do lesser infraction crimes. And you'll also see people who, when you were telling them, because a lot of people are like the Coomers, they're always pushing back on that because what they're not realizing is why it's wrong. They don't want to be told they're wrong. And when you force that kind of position, instead of opening an opportunity of going and saying, can I tell you why pornography is wrong? Let me show you the evidence of what it does.
Yeah, nobody's doing that. Boy. Well, if only people would just tell people that pornography is wrong. That would certainly solve the problem.
It's not going to solve the problem because people are still going to do what they're going to do.
No. You see, John, the thing that's interesting is that obviously if you legislate something, it's going to greatly reduce the amount of that thing which is done. That's why we have legislative processes, because they tend to work. If you legislate, hey, you can't make porn anymore in the United States. You think less people are going to make it or more people are going to make it?
The likelihood, if you do it, is there going to probably be less people doing it.
There's going to be a lot less people doing it. Now, let us assume that you were a person who was prone to pornography. You would have been one of those guys who, not you specifically, but let's just assume you would have been one of those guys who the second you saw pornography, you were hooked, right? It was your thing. It was your jam. And you were going to go get yourself a nice San Franciscan coom pod. And bro, you were going to put on that VR helmet and you were going to coom. Okay. That was what your life would have been. But some asshole legislated that you couldn't make it anymore and you never saw the porn. Do you think your life would be any worse because you never saw the porn?
Obviously, their life would be better if they didn't see it.
Yeah, their life would be better. So what the fuck is the problem here? What is the fucking problem, John?
I'm worried about when we try to push Christian ideas into things like nationalism because of all the other things that come as a result of these things. When we try to over politicize Christianity, that there's a problem that I have with that. Because when it becomes focused outside of things of Christ, that's my concern.
Yeah, I understand the concern, John, but you haven't demonstrated it at all in this debate. So I don't really know where to go from here. We're out of time anyway for the debate portion. So
I would agree.
I'm fine basically ending it here and doing closing statements.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. So we'll do closing. So since John went first, do you want to do it would be Andrew goes first now and then John ends it?
Yeah. Yep. Generally speaking, the person who opened first goes last. So I didn't have time to write a Ventura outro. I thought that would be twice as funny. Right. But
it really would have.
but yeah, I wasn't able to do
that impression is bang on too, man.
So anyway, go back to the debate. No, I'm kidding. just to wrap it up, thank you to SpeakeaZy, of course, for having me on the channel, organizing the debate, and thank you to John Moseman. I think that your kind of heart's in the right place, and you have a good general idea of wanting to see people follow Christian ethics willingly. I think that that's ultimately what his position is. Because if people are following it willingly, you don't have to legislate anything. That's this idea that he's really getting at with Christian anarchy. The thing is like, okay, it's a little utopian, but maybe I could even sign on for that if we didn't have to kind of understand that we live in this godforsaken cesspool as it stands right now, and that one of the reasons we do is because Christians for too long have refused to legislate based on their own morality because they've been beaten over the head by secularists that that's bad, that only secular ethics can win, that only secularists are the ones who can rule and rule fairly because they don't believe in this mischievous God figure who floods the earth and isn't nice to rainbow flag wielding Skittles eating people. Right. This is the position. And I think ultimately, John, that your position of Christian anarchy is leading more towards that. It's leading more towards the idea of secularist control, where secularists basically control every aspect of governance in your life and the poisoning of future generations, because you just kind of roll over and take it and say, man, just let go and let God. Let go and let God. That's what I'm hearing out of you. And you got to stop doing that, man, because the truth is, John, we need you over on this side. We need you to abandon this Christian anarchism fucking nonsense and start pushing people towards political office so that they can make some effective changes against these fucking coomers, degenerates, scumbags, lunatics, progressives, and whatever other archetype of absolute evil you can think of. Okay? And it's good to put those pictures and images in people's heads because they know it's true and you know it's true. So with closing, I just say this. I still don't really understand the position that well, but I think I understand it enough. And all I really needed to do was understand it enough. Basically, it just kind of reduces to this. Don't do shit. Pray a lot. Make sure that you put your trust and faith in God, which you're going to do anyway. But avoid the legislative process because, after all, you could institute some sort of laws towards moral systems and they could fail. Yeah, no shit. Oh, you could institute some type of laws and they have an adverse effect or a backlash you weren't expecting. Yeah, no shit. Yes, this is known in the political process that you may pass laws that have effects that you could not foresee. That doesn't mean that because you outlaw murder and some people who are innocent of murder get put in prison for murder, that you don't keep it outlawed. There's still a good argument to be made that, and by the way, John agrees with my argument here, that such laws should be there. And the reason that they should be there and the reason that we need those laws to be there is so that we can mitigate this kind of behavior in society that we don't like. And it's perfectly acceptable for Christians to legislate against any sort of societal behaviors that they don't like, just like it's okay for anybody else to do that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. And with that, I'll yield the rest of my time to John.
All right. John, whenever you are ready.
All right. I want to start off with a quote from Amon Hennessy, and he says, "A Christian anarchist does not depend on bullets or ballots to achieve his ideal. He achieves this ideal daily by a one-man revolution in which he faces a decadent and confused dying world."
He takes it. All right, I'll mute myself. Go ahead.
You know, you're good. You're good. You couldn't help yourself. I get it. And an acknowledgement, and I know it would seem wussified or yeah, you're just taking it, but it's not so much about what I don't like and what I want to not happen in the world. I want those bad things to cease being, but I also don't want us to sacrifice certain fundamental things. Christ understood that there are separations. He said, "Give to Caesar what is Caesar and give to me what is mine." And that is to understand that when he's also saying, is that he also said, "My kingdom is not of this earth." He said that if it were the case, my followers would go. I think right understandably so, and given a lot of the offenses that these Coomers and degens have and all the things that the Rainbow Skittle people do, it makes anyone, it's a reasonable father and reasonable man of conscience and morality, want to go nuts. But at the same time, I think we need to be careful of not being Peter Christians who, in the moment in the garden, are so overcome by this that they want to chop the guy's ear off, because there is a time and a place, and that is an understanding. One of the things I didn't get to really ask a question on, but I will end this with in my final statement. I'm here, I'm going to make it here, is there was a time when God allowed the Babylonians to take over the Jerusalem, and it was for a purpose. He made Ezekiel watch what they were going to do, because he made Ezekiel watch things that were offending God and Ezekiel, which are what his own people were doing in the temple. Sometimes, yes, we need to adhere to certain authority. We have to adhere to certain rules. However, to be so focused on those things, like they were in the time of Jesus. There were everyone that was wanting Jesus to be a cultural and political leader. They were wanting him to be all these things to make Israel great again. They wanted all these things to happen, but he came for a particular purpose. And in that, we start with the individual. That doesn't mean that by starting with the individual path and using cooperation and trying to reach people with love, that we don't start that process. Now, yes, ideally, it's not a process that's pragmatic. It's not a process that is going to win you anything right away, but it is a good ethical thing to have. Sometimes progress just for the sake of progress is not good. Doing something just for the sake of doing it is not good. It is good and right to sometimes ask questions and to assure that we're doing something for the right reasons, and remembering of all things that our ruler is Christ himself, because there is no king but Christ. And that's what I'll end with.
All right. Awesome. So I did ask you both. I just want to make sure you guys are both okay with it, with the doing call-ins.
Yeah.
Okay. And also, I do want to thank you both for coming and doing this debate. It was awesome. I can't lie. A little bit into it, I was like, oh shit, I don't know if this is gonna go very long. But it actually it went the whole hour, and it was actually a good debate. So I appreciate you both.
Well, it was hard. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I mean, when you start off with Jesse Ventura and you nail that impression so well, I'm just like,
right?
You know, instant
W.
Yeah.
This was my debate debut on SpeakeaZy's channel. I wanted it to be memorable.
That's it.
I could see someone putting a GIF on something, and it'd be like the Mortal Kombat going fatality, you know. Or that scene from Aliens with where Bill Paxton's character, it's over, man, it's over.
Yeah. Teriak, welcome.
Yo, just want to say again, thanks for the debate, Andrew and John as well for stepping up. Just to get on to your point, like you mentioned kind of like the meek shall inherit the earth, and then you were saying that they let Babylon get taken over, but like how would you kind of resolve this with Jesus telling the disciples to sell their cloak and buy a sword?
Yes. So there are times where obviously Christ himself wasn't a complete pacifist. He wasn't some wussy, hippie, all you need is love. Now, he wasn't just doing that. He did flip over the tables. There is a time, and Ecclesiastes 3 tells us this, there is a time for all things. However, when it comes to the important issue, of what the message of Christ is, and in that moment of when it comes to his most important work, which is to deliver souls from themselves, from their sin, and to bring them into the church, that is something that is not a time to do those things. And he does use language like, I come to bring a sword, to also be a reference as well. So there are times when you do have to use violence. There are times when you do have to use force. The question is, when it comes to a government system, when you are, the more, in my belief, the more you increase that centralization, the more you try to increase that power, the more prone you are of getting into more situations where there's unnecessary need of that, in my opinion. I don't know if that answers your question.
Kind of, but like what I'm saying is that like to tie it back in, because like the swords often uses imagery and all that kind of stuff. Like would you not then agree though that like Andrew's saying that we need to use this sword of the government against what they've been doing in terms of legalizing abortion, all that kind of stuff? No.
Well, I don't know if I would equate it to being the sort of government, but I would argue that first and foremost, there's a personal responsibility and an individual responsibility for people to take up the whole armor of God, to take up the full duties of a Christian, which is to go out into a dying world and to do that. And if you could be able to create a system of government which would allow for those things to happen and not sacrifice some of the things that we have seen throughout the history, I think that would ideally would be great, but it's not going to happen, I don't think, because there are things within the world that the more we focus on the world, the less we focus on Christ. So that's would be why I would say that. So
yeah, fair enough. Easy, thanks for having me on. I need to get some sleep. And Andrew, as always, pleasure watching you.
Have a good night, man.
Yeah, Teriak, thanks for coming up, man.
Thanks.
Next, we got Corinth.
So, John, you've repeatedly said that a centralized authority is going to have more coercion. So, say you have two countries or two power systems. One is 10 decentralized power systems holding some set of laws over one geopolitical area, and the other has just one entity doing the same thing over the same geopolitical area, same laws. How does the latter case have more coercion than the former case?
okay, say that one more time because I'm making sure I fully understand your
You
point.
have the same geopolitical area. There
Okay.
are 10 entities holding the same set of laws over it.
Okay.
Or there's one entity, a centralized entity, holding the same set of laws over it. How
Gotcha,
does the latter case have more coercion than the former case?
Well, with the more of the centralization, or the more of one power, that it usually comes with the ability to have more means and have more ability. So usually bigger governments tend to have more means, like more money. They have usually bigger armies. They tend to have bigger agencies of enforcement for things. And so in that, you can see that there are abuses within those things that can occur. There are things that would happen in that. And so there's risk that when more authority is given, the more it can actually corrupt. That would be what
That's actually not there at all. It's still there. It's just split up between them because you have the same geopolitical power over the area. It's just split up in 10 different ways, and they have
okay.
I
think what you're saying. Okay.
It has no implication like that. So honestly, how does that have more coercion?
I don't know if I could. I don't know if I have an answer for that.
Since you can't think of any reason, do you not think that's like a reason to say, oh, centralization doesn't inherently lead to more coercion?
That's a possibility. That could happen. But I do know that I mean, if you look just within the United States, I think you can see you're going to see more abuses and more coercion of things happening in things like the ATF or like the FBI than you would like a local sheriff's office. So
Absolutely
I think
not.
localization
most abuses happen in like the late 1800s, early 1900s, around voting for governors and mayors of cities. These decentralized areas
have
that's
the most
abuse.
That's a fair point.
It's just you're seeing it more centralized, and that's the only thing I seem to be the issue. So why is that worse than the other one?
It's not necessarily inherently more worse or not.
Then it seems your entire position just doesn't hold up anymore. Because
Well,
now we're allowing centralization for the same policies you were fine with the decentralized force having.
Well, like I said, it is my belief that the more power there is, that the more it is.
You already admitted that you have no reason to believe that. You have no ability to show that.
Well, I force can happen in a lot of different
something
ways.
you already contradicted, or what?
No. What I'm trying to say is that I believe that force is something that can happen in that regards. I'm just trying to say I don't given the example you're using, I mean there's not really anything I could say to that on that regards other than to say that whether you're facing 1,000 people versus one big guy, it doesn't. I mean, the power structure's still relatively the same thing. Now, the question on centralization is obviously always the big question on centralization is the less ability it is for the person on the lower end of it to be able to affect change or to be able to have, or the more ability for them to be abused in that system.
That can also just be a good thing in cases where they have normatively good laws. That gives less of an ability to get off of those good laws. It's harder for someone to have, oh yeah, we should legalize like child porn or something. It's a lot harder when you have an entire country you have to change over than like one really small like enclave of like 15 militiamen.
I get what you're saying. Okay, that's a fair point. I don't have an argument against it. So,
Like,
all right. Well, thanks for coming up, Corinth. It's good to see you. Oh, you just just comes, attacks, and leaves. All right, we got another one here. Weirdo John, welcome.
Hello, everybody. Hope everybody's having a good night. Can you hear me properly?
Yeah, we hear you good.
All right. So, John, the bigger John, less coherent John, how are you doing? So what I would say, can there be a righteous king?
define righteousness.
Like a moral Christian man who is righteous under God, can he be a king as well as being righteous?
Can that exist? It could exist. Yes, it has existed.
Okay. Right. So God did establish kingdoms, correct?
He did.
So why does that not apply to today?
Because I think when you look at how he established kingdoms and when he established kingdoms and when he came personally in his incarnation and the mission that he had and the things that he spoke to his apostles, there are things in there that from an ethical standpoint, what he is trying to express has nothing to do with so much advocating for one political position or the other, but rather the important responsibility that one has in their vocation to do the things in which we must acknowledge and allow, and on the things that we can, on the things we can change, we change. On the things we can't, we give it to God. We trust in God. The important thing in all of those things is when you especially see like the Pharisees and the things that and the Sadducees trying to trap him because they were trying to trap him in his logic and what he was trying to say, because they were trying to make him because there's a lot of people who felt this way. They were trying to make him into just a purely political person. And that's not what he was there. That's why he said the things he said about Caesar. But the reality of those things is that if all those things are within that person and their vocation, and that person has that vocation, then yes, that can be a good thing. The reality is we haven't seen a good Christian king in a very long time. We have seen a lot of the infrastructures and things that traditionally were built up for those things. Over time, abuses have allowed to become in. There's been cultural issues that have come in. There's obviously been theological problems that have come in. And when those things develop, the ability to say, well, can there be a good Christian man? Well, yeah. I mean, obviously, I used to advocate for Christian monarchism at one point. I used to, would love to have had someone like Aragorn, be able to be my king or have some great Christian moral leader. But when you see what ends up happening as over time, when some of these things develop, they become problematic. And that is an issue because we just have not seen that example happen.
What you're just saying, basically all of that summed up is that power corrupts. And we would both agree that power corrupts to some people, but not necessarily to everybody. If a man, do you believe all
humans are capable of
righteous man?
Even righteous men are capable
but
of
a truly righteous Christian man, can he wield power without being corrupt?
No, not without being corrupt.
So there's no way that at any point in time, so we are to be completely defenseless, like Andrew said, and just let them.
No, I'm saying that there's
and never have any power at all.
Corrupt. I'm saying there's no such thing as a person that can't be corrupt.
Well, we're not saying they're sinless, but that doesn't mean their head's still in the right place and they're still righteous within the eyes of God and repenting for their sins daily. So what would be? I just don't understand.
If that person also existed, okay, go ahead.
Also, I would say, so the Bible, that you're a Protestant, right?
I'm in the Protestant world. I wouldn't use that word.
So, okay, so you pulled the Sola Scriptura. So the Bible that you now hold in your hands, who called the councils together? Was it the bishops and the emperor to bring the councils together to discuss theology, to bring the canon
on that earth, in the physical sense? You're right. That in the material sense, that did occur. Yes, that did.
So what is so do you have a problem with the councils coming together by the emperor?
I don't have I have no problem with councils being called by an emperor, and I have no problem with the councils. I have any problem if the councils themselves go away from
do you believe that they were corrupt, or did they have the Holy Spirit? Were they corrupt?
I believe that when it came to the canonization of the Bible, that they were divinely inspired by God. Yes.
They were led by the Holy Spirit. So why couldn't the Holy Spirit lead a man or a government now?
I'm not saying that he couldn't and that there wouldn't. I'm saying that the important thing for us as Christians is that we don't await for that kind of person to try to arrive. We as Christians have to be ready as individuals to go into the situation and go into the fight ourselves. Why can't we
have both? But all right, that's good enough for me. I don't want to take up all the time. Thank you for answering the question. Thank you, SpeakeaZy. Good to see you, Andrew.
Appreciate you. Take care, man. Rick.
Yes. Hello.
How's you doing?
I'm fine, and I will keep it serious and brief. So, hello to you both, Andrew and John. Under strict instructions to be, topical. So, John, I want to ask you, how has it felt having your arse handed to you on a plate? And is your college degree going to do anything with the aftermath of the coping you're going to go through?
College degree do what now?
Is it going to help you cope with this traumatic experience?
Okay. Well, first of all, I don't have a college degree, so I would make that assumption just because.
That'll do me. I'm done. He's thick as fuck. Thank you very much. Cheers, SpeakeaZy. I have to apologize.
Fucking Brick.
You're good, buddy.
I told him, don't come up and roast. This isn't one of those days. And he's like, I'll find the proper way to do it then. Fucking English. Merle.
Hey, SpeakeaZy, Andrew, John. How are you guys all doing? It was a good debate. My question for John is, where do we draw the line at? It's like the way that I listen to both sides of the conversation that you guys are having, me listening to Andrew and the impact that he's made on me, just listening to him talk, is kind of letting me know that I need to stand up for what I believe in, or I'm going to get walked on, and we need to kind of return that same kind of energy that's coming to us. So my question to you is, can you move a little bit more towards the middle? We got to let go, let God do his thing, and let God change a person. But we also have to take initiative as men. I think that what has happened with modernity is that it's made a lot of weak men, and the men that were alive back in those days, they took charge and they did something about the situation, and they just didn't do, they didn't do nothing. You know what I mean? The Bible says to quit ye like men. That's in 1 Corinthians chapter 16, verse 13. It says, watch ye, stand fast in the faith, and quit ye like men, and be strong. And then it says, let all your things be done with charity. So there's a thing called tough love. And I'm wondering where is that? Where is that going to, where's the line for you when you have to start to show tough love?
Well, you always have to show tough love when there's a situation, but we have to be careful not to make tough love turn into something that's no longer love. And that is an equally important thing to consider. I know it's easy to get up here and to be based and to say things and to rah, rah, rah. And I 100% think that there's a time for that. And I appreciate what Andrew does in that regard. I'm glad that there are people like him that are in this space doing that. I also think there's a time for also people to be reflective and to ask ourselves questions. And I know that it makes it unpopular for some people because it's not always an easy thing to tackle. But about how we do hold ourselves to accordance to God while also not being pushovers. That is always a good balance. And it's a hard thing to do when you're trying to present an idea. I do think just because I am weary of how much we try to put Christianity into government or into any kind of political system, it doesn't mean that I don't think that we as individuals don't have a responsibility or that we shouldn't be pushing back. I understand that there's a pragmatic aspect of what Andrew is saying, and there's an effectiveness to what he is saying and how he says it, which makes him so good at debating and why he is so successful right now, which I think all credit for him on that. But I also know that sometimes pragmatism is a problem. And if we just look at something for the sake of pragmatism, or we just pick up our swords and just rush to the hill, and sometimes there is a time to ask questions and time to say, how do we do this better? Or is there a better way of doing this without losing something that's core to our Christianity? Because I think a lot of people these days are being on the internet. They're listening to things being said by people and they go, oh yeah, people like Andrew Tate, that's really base, and it's really good for men. But there's also an aspect of, yes, men are supposed to be stoic. Yes, men are supposed to be strong. Yes, men are also supposed to be gentle. Men sometimes have to show compassion, and those without being a wuss and without being a complete, over aggressive person. That's the balance that we all have to find as men. And I'm not necessarily saying I'm not willing to be swayed by a good argument. I'm saying I have come to this point where I'm at now, and I'm advocating for this because I have been disillusioned. I've been to this point where you get excited by the idea of some of these traditional values that have established in the church and some of these things. And then I've seen where things continue to stay the same. And I say, okay, the system, the institutions, they have not improved that. What do I have to do? And that's where I have to say that there has to be the one-man revolution to do that. That starts and that ends for me right there. So
I got one more question.
All right. Try not to make it too long, though. I don't want to keep.
All right,
I don't want to keep people too long past the. But go ahead.
It's gonna be real quick. Have you ever been self-reflective after you got your butt whooped by your dad?
Okay, that's
it.
A stupid question. Anyways, we have one more caller here. American Nacho, welcome.
Hey, what's up? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, I just love the fact that you have the Hispanic wife beater on. Where's your 40? Where's your 40 of Old E, bro?
I haven't opened it yet. I just got back from Kentucky, so
He needs all the English.
I haven't gone to the store and got one yet.
Is your wife pregnant?
Actually, she is.
Yeah, I knew it. So your wife's pregnant. You've got the wife beater. You've got a big can of beer, right?
Not yet, but yeah. I was about to go get one, and then I was like, I got to call into this real quick. So I'll do my one critique of Andrew real quick, which is just why didn't you have a Ventura outro? All right, that was
fuck. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, I fucked that up. I did. I don't know that I completely nailed the Ventura voice, but I tried to get close. I tried to get close.
Like,
that's pretty good.
Like, damn, it's gonna be hard for me not to laugh this whole time.
And then for John, I hate that he touched on exactly what I was going to ask too, which is like basically using that same quote where it talks about like not being like men. And I was going to ask you essentially, I think what he basically asked you is, isn't it more being like men to be cowardly and weak and run from danger and, just protect your own life, just protect your own salvation. Don't worry about getting out there and imposing your, moral ethics on society. Just worry about your own salvation and then tuck your tail between your legs and kind of sit there and do nothing. Like, wouldn't you say that that's more not following, what you're supposed to do?
I would agree, and I would agree if that was the case of what I was promoting or suggestion. If that's what you got from what I said, then clearly I'm not. I didn't articulate my position well enough, because that's not what I'm saying. I'm acknowledging, and this is part of the problem with this idea of how to address this issue of how do we, because again, there's a time for everything. There is a time for peace. There is a time to show mercy. There is a time to show love. There is a time to do war. There is a time to take the
legislate
fight.
morality with a massive centralized form.
I wouldn't disagree with any of that stuff, that there is a time for everything. And that was actually part of my another question that I had for you, is because I was going to kind of lead you into another, kind of that question, because I was going to ask, if you believe that everybody should be out there advocating for Christ, do you think that every Christian actually does a good job advocating for Christ?
No, obviously people don't. Obviously.
Okay, yeah, because some people do a bad job, right?
Yeah.
So the people who are good at those, the people who are skilled at those things, the people who have influence and power and sway and natural charisma and God-given gifts to do things like that, to be public speakers, etc., should they not be using those gifts and talents to bring people to Christ?
They should be. 100%.
Right. So then if someone is a good leader, a good politician, and they can get into office and they can hold office and they can legislate, just like somebody basically asked it earlier too, like if they could be a good king, isn't that a good thing? But I mean, not even a dictatorial type monarchical king, but just a regular old hometown politician. That's a good thing, right?
I would agree. It would be, yeah.
So then they would be legislating, using their Christian morals, their Christian ethics.
And I'm not saying you can't legislate with Christian morals. I'm not saying you can't. So that's, again, if that's something that came off as a result of my and
it's already kind of been asked, so I don't want to beat a dead horse, and then my last thing was just because when you were talking about the prison systems, I really took issue with that because it didn't really make any sense to me. So maybe I didn't hear it right. I was driving, but it sounded like you were basically saying we can't walk and chew gum at the same time. Like we can't, like somehow that putting people in prison means that we can't also give them the word and allow them to have a spiritual journey while they're in prison, even if they're put away for life. We can still introduce them to
we can't, but the and maybe if you had a Christian system of government, that might be something that could happen. But
I'm glad you said that, because that was my other follow-up to that was going to be that we do that now. Even people who are lifers attend church in prison. They have Bible studies in prison. They convert in prison.
Right.
Even knowing they're going to spend the rest of their life in prison and never get out. They're not doing it to get out on good behavior.
Right.
They've just found the right path. So I don't understand how, if somehow Christians were legislating or kind of ruling over the prison systems, etc., I don't know why that would go away. If anything, it would probably be more. There would probably be more of that, right?
Well, I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can say that for sure without, I don't know.
Well, I mean, if there's a decent amount now, there's a fairly high amount of that thing happening now, and I would say we're pretty secular currently as a society. Why would there not be more? If we,
I'm not saying there
our politicians began to.
That's what I said. I said that you would probably see more of that. My only thing is that is making sure, because part of this is not saying that we shouldn't have laws or we shouldn't have punishment or jail or any of those things. I'm saying I think we as Christians have to be careful when we're in this space of talking about, we got to throw all the degens in prison, that we are missing out on.
Yeah, but I didn't say that. I don't. No,
I'm just saying that comes off. I'm saying that comes off a lot of times in the red pill space, and I'm saying when that happens,
they're all fucking degens. What do you mean?
when that happens, I think we have to be a bit more how we have to be more. I think we should consider more things of how we could be more effective than just saying those things. Not that we shouldn't be doing that as a society.
But that was my point though. Is like, why can't we? Why can't we do both if we're already doing both now as a secular society? We're already doing both. Churches and chapels, etc., are allowed inside of the prison system. It happens all the time,
right?
And there's reform systems, and also we give people the boot that are murdering and our wording and just doing the most heinous things, we already throw them away for life, or we try to.
So my point of what I'm trying to say is, I'm not trying to say that we don't do that, or that isn't happening, or that couldn't happen. I'm saying, as Christians in a sphere like on YouTube, and when we're talking about these issues of how we deal with these issues, being careful of why when we say let's just do that, because that kind of happens. There's kind of like this hard edge that we have of saying, well, let's just do this, and it's like, okay.
Well, no, there's not though. There's currently there is, I believe.
Okay, well,
currently it's kind of there's kind of more and more Christians deciding that actually we probably should at the very least speak out against the degeneracy, and so you're seeing a little bit more of that. But there hasn't been. Christians that sit in silence, and they just kind of let the world run them over.
This is a very feminized view. Okay, so the truth is that do you really think that people are being more militant and hard-edged about Christianity in the United States than they were in 1850 or 1890?
I'm not saying
1930. It's like not even close. We're totally feminized when it comes to Christianity, and mostly pacifistic, and have been completely beaten down and demoralized to the point where we're just like, you just do you, man, and let me just come over here and do my own thing. Just please leave me alone, man. Leave me alone, man. We have become completely I don't know how you could ever say anything like hard edge. There is no hard edge.
I'm saying we have to be careful about how we come off as being hard edged when we're saying these
or
things.
What men might find their balls again and be like, oh yeah, we could tell people to go fuck themselves. That's great. Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Well, that's what the
funnest thing is on planet Earth to say to some of these people is like, fuck off. And I think reminding people that they can say that from time to time is good.
That is true. All right, I have one more question. I'll get out of your hair so you guys can get out of here. And also thank you for your time. There was something that Andrew started to ask, I think, and then it was kind of, you guys are going back and forth, and it was kind of heated. So I think it got, ran past. But you were basically touching on that somehow that if you were a legislator or a statesman or whatever you would call it, a politician in a mostly like Christian nation or something, that somehow that's going to compromise your own salvation. Why do you think that being a ruler or being a good leader is somehow going to compromise your salvation?
I didn't say that. I said we have to be careful as Christian. Again, what I am saying is, when I'm talking about this as a critique on overall Christianity, as Christians who are engaging these questions of trying to determine how we go about affecting change in society, when we go about being focused on things to a certain degree, we can put our focus off Christ. And it's not just talking about government, because that's not the only thing that does it. I mean, there's other things.
With anything that can happen. I wouldn't disagree with that.
So what my point and what I'm trying to say is not that you can't, and that's why I thought I said that, and maybe I didn't say it loud enough, but I'm not arguing that you as an individual or anyone as an individual who's got their full, who is fully in their Christian faith and is trusting in the Lord cannot be in the government or cannot be in the political sphere. It's just that what we need to think about as Christians in a more kind of in a way of talking about the issue of making sure that we don't forego some of the essentials is, how do we do that without doing those things? That is my big concern, and I do think that can happen. And so the question would be, okay, so if you don't agree with the Christian anarchist point of view, then the question is, how do we do it in the system that is being promoted by other things? Because I think that just saying, well, because this is always what happens, and I've heard this all the time.
You just use the levers of government that are already in place.
I've heard this all the time as a Republican, where people go, well, if we just get in, and it never happens. And so or we forget to fix, as we're building the road to get to power, we then forget why we get put into power in the first place. And
yeah, but that's never not going to happen. I still think it's better to be involved than to not be involved, and to just say, we should do away with the structure as a whole and then just focus on, building a farm together or something. Like
that's not, and again, I'm not advocating that. I think that's part of the problem. And again, maybe the debate format is not the best way to present the information.
I think it's the position. I don't understand it. Christian anarchism. I don't understand how you want to advocate for, an ordered society, but also it doesn't even seem like you can put the two words together. It just doesn't make sense.
I know people don't believe that.
An ordered disorder or something like that. All right. Anyways, I'll get out of you guys' hair. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Nacho.
You have a good night.
Take care, man. All right. I only got like 6 super chats to read if you guys are okay with that.
Yeah, I do got to get going here in a few, but
yeah. So we'll get through these quickly here. American Nacho is actually the first one here. Andrew Wilson versus the cucumber from VeggieTales was not on my 2021. Shit. Thank you, American Nacho. React with the 5 euros. Andrew to do the USA chant. That's become the cheat code over on the verbal combats now. I think you guys we're gonna ban that chant or something because you guys are cheating with that now. Bintalk says, "Don't read this easy." Thank you, Bintalk. I won't read it. Shane with the $20 says, I never realized Andrew enjoyed spanking other men like this. Also, I still have no idea what Christian anarchism is. John needs to think about what this idea actually even is and what it wants to really do. Do you want to respond to it at all? Are you good?
All I'll just say is that I'm not going to say that I'm a master or a expert on the topic of being Christian anarchist.
You're going to come back to the other side, huh?
No, I'm not going to come to the other side. What I'm going to say is that for those people who are interested in having a conversation about this and not just, then there's a conversation to be had. I wanted the opportunity to debate someone like Andrew because, one, I knew he was going to give me a challenge. I mean, if I wanted to find some milquetoast person to, that would just be like, well, what do you think? And I mean, no, I mean, it's obviously, you don't go against, you don't go to the AA league to look for improvement. You go to the show, and Andrew was the show, and rightfully so. So, no, to me, it's obviously from a debate format going forward, I probably have to think about simplifying some things and again, there is a good point to this, which is to really say, okay, can it be clarified in a way that would be educational for a debate? So that's something I have to work on improving, and I personally am going to try to work on doing that. So I appreciate the comment, though.
You gotta start somewhere. You know what I mean? And as you do this more, you'll perform better, right? I want to see ultimately your position change, and I think it will as you engage in more debates. So my suggestion is that you keep debating, that you don't back off an inch until you've absolutely had the rest of this absurd worldview destroyed. But I think you'll get there. I think you'll get there if you. I'd keep going.
Well, and like I said, I've enjoyed this, even because sometimes, when you realize that you probably didn't win, or you didn't probably do best on your position, because again, it's when you're thinking to yourself, you're like, oh, this makes sense to me. Whether it makes sense to somebody else is a different question. But that's why I appreciated this and this ability and this chance to do that. And like I said, we may have some disagreements, but like I said, and maybe what I need is to find a better way of how we can improve a system that you're on. Maybe that's the question. I don't know. I just know I've been disillusioned by some of the things that I've been a part of. And, I've gone through this whole process of things. But whether you want to call it being spanked or getting my ass, it's enjoyable. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, like,
well, you definitely did good, man.
Andrew is funny, and to me, the kind of person I would have a barbecue with every time, and he'd be like, I'd come over to Andrew's house and be like, "Hey, Andrew, look what I found," and he's like, "Dude, why the hell would you spend your money on that or something like that?"
Crazy Zark. That's all, folks. Thank you, Crazy Zark. Righteous Muffin, shut up, Nacho. Righteous Muffin always telling Nacho to shut up. Look, shut up twice, Nacho. Thank you, Righteous Muffin. Well, I hope I said that right.
Well, Emmanuel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
MX.
Mexican pesos.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's the equivalent of 22 cents American.
Well, thank you for the 22 cents. I appreciate you. Provide an example of a law that could be both informed by Christian values and at the same time get you away from Jesus.
That's a great question.
That is a great question. The thing of it is that there are a lot of things that seem to be on the surface Christian, but the question comes to be, because a good example with this would be like is if somebody would make a law that says, well, we as a country, we are going to adopt a belief that Zionism is a good thing. And if you were to adopt something like that and say, well, this is an authentically Christian perspective, and yet deny the fact that the church is Israel or whatever. I mean, that would be a good example of, because there are people who take things and say that that's Christian and arguably are not. I mean, there's a lot of people I know that would say things like the Trinity. Well, I don't believe in the Trinity, but I'm still a Christian, and maybe they would. So I think it's a harder thing to do, obviously. So the question would be to go back to the prescription.
You mean if they legislated that dispensationalism needed to be adhered to?
Yeah.
I
don't know why they would.
I'm not really sure that that's in the spirit of Emmanuel's question, honestly.
Okay. That's true. Okay, I'm reaching here. I'm reaching here, Dave. I'm reaching here, Andrew.
Look, at least you admitted it. Thank you, Emmanuel. If you're loving your neighbor, by Matthew Holland, by the way. If you're loving your neighbor means willing good upon them, what better way to will good upon them than legislate evil out their life?
Then to legislate evil out of
I think he's saying then to top down legislate, because that's a response to mine.
Oh yeah, that makes sense too.
That's what I think he's probably trying to say, meaning at the higher authority or whatever. So that's a great question. But again, to me, if you're saying, well, I'm going to help you by being a better Christian. So what I'm going to do is I am going to kidnap you and take you to church on Sunday. Going to church would make you a better Christian, But
that would be a very specific thing you're saying.
Yeah.
Daniel Zan, Moseman. Do you agree that what Andrew is doing by going on whatever and pushing back against feminism is Christian-like? By the way, you're a feminist, clearly.
Well, this shows you just how much this person doesn't know. Because again, people will go into this idea of, well, should you go? Because there was that other guy that poorly debated Andrew about going on whatever, right? And I have no problem. I watch when Andrew goes on whatever. I mean,
yeah. So they're asking, do you think that's Christian-like too?
I do think, yeah. And I think Andrew actually understands something very well about what happens on the whatever, is that you can't just preach from your ivory tower, right? You have to go down into the streets. You have to go down to where people are. You have to go into the places where they're not always going to be. That's always going to be friendly, or you're going to want to take a shower afterwards. And so that is a good thing. And no, I am not a feminist, clearly, and I do not have a woman as a pastor. No, so there's some misunderstandings there.
A Nacho with another 10. I used to believe in magic dirt theory, John. Don't be too hard on yourself. You showed up and played it to the last inning. Come back around for a verbal combat night. True.
I did have to beat that stupid shit out of Nacho. That's true. But it didn't take him long to abandon the position and become fucking epic in every conceivable way. So there's that.
That's it. John, the Wise Tushy, says, rocking the Crucible gear from the Crucible Live Grift store. Thank you, Easy, for the debate. Question, no problem, John. Question for John. If I came into your home and started stealing stuff, would you stop me? If so, how?
Yes, I would stop you, and I would stop you with my 12-gauge shotgun, and I would say, put down what you're going to do, and if you don't, I'm going to shoot you.
So force.
Yeah, I'm not arguing that force isn't a problem. Yeah. I'm arguing force is when if every solution has to be done by force when it's a system which does not necessarily have to be used by force.
Giovanni with the $5. When Christians enforce their values, Christians call it tyranny. When progressives enforce values, Christians call it liberty.
It's true.
Shit. Thank you, Giovanni. And the last one, Vengeful Truther with $5. I'd like to thank you both for coming on to the debate. It was fun. Andrew, we will see another midnight run, baby. That was jokes. Yeah, the midnight run was too good. That intro thing, midnight run, baby. I was dying listening to that.
Stupid shit. Yeah, I did promise it's a TikTok invasion this week. We still have one more day left to go. We will, of course, get it in. I tend to keep those promises. So,
based. Again, I want to say thank you to you both. It's been absolutely amazing having you both here. Did any of you did you have anything you wanted to read, Andrew, or anything like that while you were here? Or?
My super chats sent into this channel are far too good for you, and there's no way at all that I'm ever going to read them on this broadcast. But I do appreciate you having me on SpeakeaZy. It was very kind of you, and it was kind of you, John, to come out for the debate. I can't always arrange these things, and one of the things, it's really funny. I get a lot of grief from people who are like, oh my God, you had me out 4 weeks and this guy asked, 2 days ago and he let him in. It's like, well, I didn't have to arrange it. You know what I mean? I didn't have to arrange it. I didn't have to host it. I didn't have to organize it. And it's like, it makes it way easier for me when people take care of that legwork. So it's way easier for me to show up and do the content. It's like, I wish more people would do that, and they would find that I was far more inclined to tangle with them. Otherwise, it's just all like, Andrew, not only do I want to debate, but I need you to find a moderator, and I need you to host it, and I want to make sure that
I need a moist towel. I need a moist towel.
Yeah, and I need everything. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's just like, okay, well, and I'll do it. Sure, I'll do it for you, but can you give me a little time to work you in? You know what I mean?
Yep, that's how it goes. But
when he said that there would be a possibility, I said, well, okay, well, just let Andrew know whenever is because he's got a busier schedule than I do for stuff. And I was like, so I didn't expect it to happen as quick as it did, but whatever that happened is like, yeah, let's make that work. Let's make it easy. And I think that's what you have to do. You have to be amenable to people. And to me, in my case, since I've got the smaller channel, and it only makes sense that I would be more amenable.
I don't give a shit about that, dude.
I know, but you know what I'm saying. I mean,
I like to do the debates. I don't care, dude. Yeah. I had a fucking small channel too. You know what I mean? So you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah. Before I even had 1,200 subs, and Andrew came down for a debate panel that I did. So he doesn't look at that type of shit.
I don't care legitimately. I think that some of the best debates that I get are not from mainstream personalities. I do like debating with them too. Yeah. But they don't always have the best ideas.
Yeah. So, well, and like I said, you did a good job on a lot. You do a lot. I mean, and I think a lot of it's because a lot of people, you're ready. I mean, you're on the next level there, and that helps. And you just iron sharpens iron. And the fact that I was thinking, the other day of when that other person who I'm not going to name said, well, the Crucible is a Christian name, isn't it? And I'm like, no, do you not know what that means? Something about, how things are formed, right? And the idea is you go through the system, like in the way the Marines do it, right? With the Crucible, it makes you stronger. That's the whole point of it. It changes you.
There is such a thing as retard speak, and some people, unfortunately, that's all they speak.
Facts.
Yeah.
That's all they speak. So, but anyway, yeah, I do very much appreciate it. And, John, don't be a stranger in the Crucible. Hope to see you over there.
Oh yeah.
And, again, SpeakeaZy, thanks for organizing the debate. And again, it's way easier if people do the organization aspect and just go, here's the days I have open. Which can you do? Makes my life tremendously easier. And I'd be far more inclined. I mean, that's one of the reasons with Sarah that we were able to do that debate, is because I didn't have to do anything. Right.
Yeah.
And so it makes operating the schedule way easier. So,
well, thank you for your time and your all that.
Yeah.
And I appreciate.
Well, no problem, guys. I'll get out of your hair. Have a good night.
You as well, Andrew. Thank you. John, you said that you got to get going too, right? So
yeah, I got to get going, and I just want to say thank you again, and I appreciate it. And like I said, it's always good. You got to start somewhere, and it's been a while, and it's.
Hey, man, you did good. You did good. So. And like Andrew said, just keep fucking going. Don't stop, right? Like go until you've realized, because there's been things that I've had strong stances on, and then I realized, oh shit, this is wrong. I've had to beat on it,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So, anyways, I just thank you again, and I'll.
And everyone just finds you at John Moseman Productions, obviously.
Yeah, they can find me at John Moseman Productions.
Andrew doesn't really need to.
Yeah, he doesn't need it. Yeah.
John
Moseman Productions is the YouTube, and then but they can find all my stuff. I'm slowly building up the website, but the johnmoseman.net is where I'm building the links up on that as well. So.
All right.
Well, I appreciate it, and thank you so much, and thanks for everyone watching, even the people who were giving me crap. It's okay,
Yeah, man.
that's what you do when you get signed up for this. You don't if you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen. So I appreciate the effort, and it only enforces the things I need to work on and all that. So.
All right, man.
I appreciate it, brother, and I'll see you on the next time you're on panel or whatever. And
yeah, I'll be back people wanted me to do a little after panel, so I'll do an after panel. If you want to come up, you're more than welcome.
Okay, yeah, I'm just gonna check in with the wife and see how she's doing. But yeah, so.
Yeah. All right, man.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Take care, bro. All right, folks. Listen, thank you all so much for coming and joining. I know we had something else planned for this Saturday, but I had to push it back because I got this prime content here for you, so I had to do it like this. I am going to run an open panel. So my next stream will be an open panel for anyone who wants to come up. You could talk about the debate. We can talk about anything. You know how we do it on random open panels. Won't be like a normal long stream, though. So it'll be like 3-4 hours max. But let's do it. I have it to send you all over there already, but just in case, for the people who don't have it on autoplay, if my mods could actually, you know what, I got it right here in front of me. I'm just going to share the link for the other live there. And yeah, I will. I know I do always say that, Lisa, but I have to do it for real because I got stuff to do tomorrow. She was like, 4 hours is a long stream. All right, I'm going to send you guys to my next one, and I will see you guys there. I have it scheduled for 10:45 because I didn't know how long the after chat would go there. Thank you, everybody who super chatted for the questions. Thank you, mods, for holding chat down. Listen, the chat can be 30. It can be 1,400. Best fucking chat on YouTube. Hands fucking down. Okay? I love you guys. I'll see you guys over there. God bless y'all.